Well, we see Diolch Cymru. Thank you, Wales. We've had two excellent stages. We head across the border into England. It's the Warrington stage for stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, a 106.8 kilometre stage, and one that has been earmarked for the sprinters. The fast women in the peloton will be licking their lips at a potential of raising their arms, but who can stop Lotte Kopecky? There's a difference in the weather conditions too. You can see the dark clouds, the wind is up. Could it play a factor in today's stage? Well, we've had two excellent stages so far. Yesterday, no photo finish needed. It was an excellent stage across the Welsh countryside, starting and finishing in Wrexham.
Hosted both the start and finish.
The school children were once again out in force to see the race away, and as they went through
Breakaway and built up a lead of over 3 minutes to the peloton. She led over the first Queen of the Mountains climb at Ayton Hill and the day's sprint at Johnstown. Behind her, Charlotte Kool and Lotte Kopecky picked up the remaining bonus seconds. Koch was reeled in before the big climb of the day, the Cat 1 Horseshoe Pass, and it was there that the race really kicked off.
Here comes the move from the leader in the Lloyds Bank green jersey. Kopecky decides enough is enough.
Lotte Kopecky attacked and was marked by Letitia Paternoster and then Anna Henderson. Eventually, Kopecky and Henderson broke away from the rest, and as they headed towards the finish in Wrexham, it was a 2-horse race.
Now Henderson goes, now the acceleration comes, but Kopecky responds. It's a strong performance, it's an immediate acceleration. The explosion comes, a rainbow shines over Wrexham, and it's 2 from 2 from Lotte Kopecky.
This is how the GC looks after stage 2. Lotte Kopecky has a 17-second lead over Anna Henderson, with Letitia Paternoster third at 34 seconds. Piper Georgie is just 4 seconds further back in 4th place, and Lizzie Deignan heads a group of 4 riders at 43 seconds.
Well, it's still all to play for the overall general classification, with 2 stages remaining. Whilst this one is earmarked for the sprinters, there's still crucially those time bonuses available at the finish line and, of course, at the one and only intermediate sprint today. Tomorrow's stage, as we head into Manchester and finish in Lee, that could shake things up. And who will be wanting and trying to take that Lloyds Bank green jersey off the shoulders of Lotte Kopecky? Well, only time will tell, and especially across today's stage. My name's Hannah Walker. Alongside me is Joanna Rousel. Joanna Rousel, welcome to the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Great to have you alongside me. We've had 2 excellent stages, haven't we?
We really have. Really excited for today, and so glad we're going to get to see the full stage from flag to finish. Doesn't always happen in cycling, across the board in professional cycling, so we're very lucky when we do get it. This was brilliant yesterday, watching Anna Henderson just mark Lotte Kopecky here. She was doing absolutely everything right, but up against the world champion, also the race leader. Stunning victory by Kopecky here on the line, but yeah, thrilling finish. Really enjoyed it.
A thrilling finish, and even more impressive from Henderson, the fact that she's on the return to racing from injury, 2 collarbone breaks this season alone. It's her first race back after a little over a month out of the peloton. It's incredible to see her back at this level here.
It really is, and I think it's been nice for her to have this target to come back for, like you say, 2 broken collarbones, but having a race in Britain. Everyone's worked so hard to make this stage race happen. Brilliant target for her, and she's showing what excellent form she's coming back into ahead of the Olympics.
Excellent form, and another rider who's in excellent form is the rider who's mopped up so far 2 stage victories in Lotte Kopecky. She wins in Llandudno and Wrexham. Let's hear from her.
Yeah.
2 out of 2 now. How does that feel?
Yeah, good. No, yesterday was really close and different. Today, yeah, it was nice to be in the break with Anna and to finish it off in the sprint.
And Arena took 3rd. Another good day for the team.
Yeah, exactly. Team Esworks Pro Time is doing a really good job here.
And can you just briefly tell us a little bit about the communication with you and Anna in that closing kilometre? Because you did have the group behind, but she wasn't going to want to come through.
No, I kind of expected it already, but I did the reckon of the final this morning, so I knew what was coming, and it was not a disadvantage to start from the lead. So yeah, I didn't mind.
Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Showing just how important a recon of the finish was, and being able to do that because the start and finish location was in the same place. Quite the same today in Warrington, starting and finishing on Sankey Street, right in the centre of Warrington itself. It has its advantages, Joe.
It really does. So, when you start out bike racing, you're used to racing races on circuit. You go through the finish loads of times, you know exactly what you're doing. When you come into the pro ranks, so many races are point to point. So when you do have a big loop like what we had yesterday and like what we've got today, you do get a chance to recce the finish. You haven't got to rely on looking at sort of online images or getting information from sort of team staff members who will go and recce it for you. And that is so valuable, and it will really show who has done their homework. I've been looking at the final kilometre here. There's a roundabout, very sweeping turn inside that final kilometre, but those that are interested in today will be able to have a little look, and I'm expecting this team to be the ones who have been looking at that.
They might be wanting to try and look after the rider on the far right-hand side in the green jersey, Lotte Kopecky, as the race leader, but they've also got the fastest woman on two wheels, Lorena Wiebes, who will be looking to try and get her arms aloft, and she's no stranger to winning in Great Britain. She's won here in the past. She won all three stages 2 weekends ago at the Ride London Classique, and so she'll want to try and continue and carry that form.
She certainly will, but I think what's interesting about this squad is it is absolutely stacked with talent. I mean, you can see there we've already got the national champions jersey for Christine Mejeris in the middle there for Luxembourg. Wiebes is a former European champion, former Italian champion in Cecchini, former world champion, Chantal van den Black. So much talent, so many options, but Wiebes is head and shoulders above everybody else in sprinting at the moment.
It's quite a rarity, actually, to see the riders in their trade team kit, in the standard purple jersey of SD Works Pro Time. Generally, you'll have maybe one rider and everyone else is in either a champions jersey of either a nation, a European jersey, or a world champions jersey. As other teams and riders, well, they've done their sign-on on the podium. They've been greeted by the fans that have amassed themselves in Warrington onto the start line. They're due to roll out at 11 o'clock local time. Just taking a look at some of the riders who are getting themselves into the zone and starting to focus on this stage ahead. Joe, how does it feel when you're on this start line and you've got the stage ahead of you?
I think very different day 3 compared to day 1. Just looking at this image here, the wind, I think if I were on the start line right now, the biggest thing in my mind would be thinking about, okay, which way is the wind blowing? Which way is it going to be for the finish? And thinking about that positioning. And very different at the start of the stage race, like I say, when you're on the start line, you can probably feel quite nervous. You're not quite sure where your form is. You're not quite sure how the race is going to go. By day 3, you're getting quite used to the sort of riders that you've got in the peloton. You know what wheels you want to follow. You know who's been struggling. You know who's always in the right place at the right time. And you've very much settled into it by this point. And because this stage keeps getting talked about as the sprint stage, there'll be a lot of teams here knowing that if it comes to a bunch sprint, we know who the winner's going to be. It's very, very likely going to be Lorena Wiebes if, she goes on past form. So I think there could be some nervous moments here with a lot of teams thinking we're going to have to do something. What that something is a great point of conversation, and we can speculate on that all day.
All day. We've got a whole stage. We're treated to flag-to-line coverage live from the very beginning all the way to the finish line here. And, of course, for many teams, they want to try and come away from this race with either a jersey, a victory, a top result, and they've had to change their strategy too because of what happened on stage 1 into Llandudno with the big gaps opening up.
Yes, we've got the big clear gap on GC from that group that were away on stage 1. Obviously, Lotte then took a second win yesterday, but really exciting for Anna Henderson to be up there. Looking at the British riders particularly, who, anybody wants to win. It's a World Tour race. Of course, it's a really prestigious race to get a victory in, but particularly for the British riders in a home event, it does mean that little bit more. I'm looking particularly at Pfeiffer Georgi, so British champion, currently 4th on GC, 4 seconds behind Leticia Paternoster, who very nearly got that win on stage 1, did celebrate.
It was close, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very, very close. Glad I wasn't trying to call that one as a live commentator. But yeah, now I'm looking towards what Pfeiffer Georgi could try and do for the 2 remaining stages. But what's interesting about that is today being the sprint day, potentially, her teammate Charlotte Kool is the only rider last season, not this season, who has been able to challenge Lorena Wiebes. She's not been on that form this year, and I would love to see Charlotte Kool, really be able to challenge Wiebes in a sprint. And previously she has done, like I say. So I'm interested how Team DSM Firmenich personnel will play this stage, given they've got that GC option, also potentially a stage option, but two very different types of riders.
It's close, isn't it? But this season, Team DSM Firmenich Post-Nal have only had one professional victory, and that came from Josie Nelson in the Tour of Normandy. Charlotte Kool herself has had 5 podium finishes, still yet to get that elusive victory, get the arms aloft, and that can change a rider, change the season once they break that whatever's stopping them from winning, and predominantly it's been Lorena Wiebes, but of course we know that Charlotte Kool suffered injury, illness throughout the early part of the season. She had to miss the UAE Tour because of illness, so it's not been a plain sailing season for her.
Yeah, well, the saying is that winning is a habit. So when you start winning, you carry on winning. She's not had that start to her wins yet. I think last year, pretty much her first race, she took the win in the UAE Tour, and that started a really, really strong 2023 season for her. But she's not managed to quite break that, I don't want to say curse, but sort of break that cycle and get that first win. But I'm sure once she does, multiple wins will roll in, and it's about her keeping the faith in herself, her team keeping the faith in her. Like, she knows she's got the talent, she knows she has beaten Wiebes in the past, and Wiebes is the rider with all the pressure on her today. We keep talking about her, everybody's talking about her, the media are all talking about her, and that is a tough position to be in, and I really hope the other riders can sort of play off that and know that all the pressure is on the shoulders of SD Worx. They've got the overall race leader in Kopecky, they've got the hot favourite for today's stage in Wiebes, and hopefully some of that pressure, I mean, they're a team that are well used to winning, but I'm hoping the other teams can sort of use that to their advantage potentially.
Try and put some challenge to SD Worx Pro Time. Try and stop them from taking a hat-trick of victories in this year's Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Well, the riders are almost ready. The fans have been ready for a long while to wait for the riders to roll out for the Neutralized section. The Neutralized section today, 5.1 kilometres long before they'll officially get themselves underway. And time to have a good look at who is wearing what jersey. On the right-hand side, you can see in the white jersey, speaking into a race radio, that's Aline Jansen, the 22-year-old Dutch rider racing for the Volker Vessel. She's the best young rider jersey. She's leading that competition ahead of Flora Perkins, 3 minutes and 57 seconds to the good. Letizia Paternoster is borrowing the red jersey off the shoulders of Lotte Kopecky. She's second overall in that classification with 16 points. Kopecky is leading with 27. But of course, because Lotte Kopecky is leading the overall general classification in green, in that Lloyds Bank green jersey, of course, that takes precedence. And Britain's very own Lizzie Deignan is leading the Queen of the Mountains competition. She leads ahead of Lotte Kopecky. She's got a 10-point buffer over Lotte Kopecky, but there's a number of riders all on the same points. You've got Anna Henderson on 14 points, Heidi Franz, Meermond and Bunel, all on 13 and 12 points. So it's all still to play for. Today, no Category 1 climbs, but 2 Category 3 climbs to contend with. Well, we get ourselves set here in Warrington for the start of the stage. It's been a host of a stage of the Men's Tour of Britain in the past, back in 2021. That was when Ethan Hayter took the stage ahead of Giacomo Nizzolo, and Dan McClay was third that year. That was stage 5 back in 2021. We're in this bustling town, industrial heritage. Famous for its rugby, actually leads into the Cheshire Lanes very well. Great roads to race on. And just looking at the timing board on the gantry, only 20 seconds to go until they'll officially roll out for the Neutralized section. The local dignitaries are ready. The fans are ready, and the riders are ready too. They roll out of Warrington for the start of stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. 22 riders starting the stage. We had a few abandons on yesterday's stage, including Hayley Simmons. She was unable to finish, along with Babette van der Wolf of Life Plus Wahoo. A peloton of 82 strong riders with 15 teams. That includes one national team, that's the Great Britain national team. 5.1 kilometres neutralised section, Joe. It's a good opportunity for riders to spin the legs. I'm sure they will have done a little bit of a warm-up before today's stage, perhaps to try and get some fatigue out of the legs after yesterday.
Yeah, so always key on a stage race, thinking about recovery for the next day, warming up, sort of spinning the legs from the previous day. You know, these riders are used to racing stage races. It's really common. We're very much in sort of stage race season at this point in the calendar, but still, you know, making sure you're doing all those little things right. It's very easy to think, yeah, I know what to do another stage today. Today is shorter and it's flatter, and I think a big mistake could be for anybody thinking that today could be easy, because it's not going to be easy by any means. We've seen there's a lot of wind out there. There is still 2 categorized climbs. It's quite heavy roads. You know, we've spoken about that before as well. You know, these roads are tough around here, but yeah, it's very important to keep those little things right, keep spinning the legs. But yeah, they have got a good, decent neutralized section here, and hopefully in about 3 hours' time, we have already seen some crowds out this morning, but a little bit of a break for all these crowds to come back to see the finish of the stage.
We've also seen earlier on today, there's been a little showering of rain as we've entered into England, so perhaps that might have a little bit of an effect later on. There's a few showers predicted along the way. The wind is high, around 21 kilometres per hour. We've got gusts of wind upwards of 36 kilometres per hour today, and you can see just from the trees blustering in the background. Marek Rymakers up towards the front for Human Powered Health. Letizia Paternoster in the red jersey. Well, she's all smiles. She'll be relishing at the chance of trying to take a victory, edging out Lotte Kopecky, or almost edging out Lotte Kopecky on stage 1. She'll be looking to try something today. Let's have a look at what the riders will take on stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women today, where we start, where they'll be heading to, and what they've got to contend with. Starting from Warrington, in this industrial town, they make their way anti-clockwise, heading in the direction of Northwich, into the Cheshire Lanes, into Cheshire East. They'll take on the first of 2 Queen of the Mountains, Pexhill, followed by Shrigley Road, and then they'll make their way towards Adlington, Alderley Edge, Mere, where we'll have our one and only intermediate sprint of the day just outside Knutsford, and then they'll have that run into the finish in Warrington. Finishing off small country roads, you've got that combination of wide roads, A roads, and including B roads too.
Yeah, a bit of everything out there today. I know you know these roads very well. I used to live in Manchester, so I do as well. The most upsetting thing for me is that the climbs are only 3rd category climbs. I thought they were quite tough. So yeah, not to be underestimated. Obviously, this is the professional women's peloton. You know, but yeah, the roads around Macclesfield are very hilly. The roads are sort of this side of Cheshire, this side of Knutsford are far flatter. We know the run-in is very fast, wide roads, but it's looking to me, currently looking at the wind map, that we've got a strong tailwind to begin with and a strong headwind to finish. So that can very much affect, you know, how the bunch will be working coming towards the finish. And if there is a breakaway, it can be very tough to stay away into the headwind.
Well, that's going to be something that they'll have to think about in terms of the wind conditions, and particularly with that headwind. As we see Abby Smith, the 22-year-old British rider, just go back to the team car. Alongside her in the team driving the car is the Dutchman Kelvin Decker. Got problems with the radio, but it's a good opportunity now during the neutral section to have any of those problems fixed. Make sure you've got anything that's bothering you, just to fix any of those issues. You can just see in the passenger seat our race director, Rod Ellingworth, new race director for the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, and he's stepped into this role very well. And of course, many will be familiar with Rod Ellingworth for the work he did with the Great Britain Men's Academy, the under-23s, and the work he's done with Mark Cavendish and Geraint Thomas and so many others throughout the years. And then, of course, when he moved into his role at Team Sky and the Ineos Grenadiers, we know, you know, his attributes and what he's able to do. But being able to turn this race around with 125 days ago, they got the green light from the UCI to put this race, this UCI Women's World Tour race, back on the calendar in this format. And he's done a terrific job.
Yeah, you can't underestimate how hard it is to put on a sporting event on the roads anywhere in the world. Perhaps slightly more difficult in the UK. And the fact that they've managed to pull it off, they've managed to bring on the title sponsor Lloyds, get on board the local councils, because that's also really important, and get that buy-in locally. You can see a lot of crowds out here supporting the riders in this neutralised section. So, huge kudos from Rod Ellingworth to do that. And like you say, most people will know him from his Team Sky and Ineos Grenadiers days and his sort of time working in the professional men's peloton. But back many, many years ago, he was part of the British cycling team based up here in Manchester. He'll know these areas as well. He'll have spent many hours driving a team car behind his riders out training on these roads in Cheshire. And I'm just super impressed that the whole team at British Cycling have been able to make this event happen. And of course, there's the men's Tour of Britain coming up in September. We had such a tighter timescale for the women's one, and there was points when it looked like, rumours were that they might be able to make the men's one happen, but not the women's. And I'm just so glad, and obviously that was purely a timescale thing, and I'm so glad that despite the tight timescale, they've been able to make the women's one happen, because it's so important, for sport as a whole, to have that equality between men and women.
Absolutely, and it's not only having the buy-in from the local councils, it's not only, of course, the teams, but it's also about road closures, having the volunteers on hand. It's the whole organisation behind the scenes, getting on Lloyds Bank as a title partner, having a partner who is a household name is brilliant for cycling too.
Yeah, for the whole of British cycling, and British cycling, of course, works across the breadth of the sport. So they worked at this elite end, hosting these bike races, Tour of Britain men and women this year, but also right down to the grassroots level of the sport, across all the different disciplines, but also cycling as a leisure activity, cycling for active travel. Cycling's about so much more than just the professional side of the sport, and to have a big sponsor come on for, it transcends just the professional sport. It's for sort of the health of the nation, countrywide, to be able to get more people on bikes is so incredibly important, and that's what I really hope this sponsor can help do.
And I think it seems as though they've got a real shared ambition between Lloyds Bank and British Cycling with their partnership, not only in terms of the racing aspect and the competition side of things, but also to inspire families, inspire people to get involved into cycling and lead a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, well, part of the major event strategy is we know that when we have, big sporting events, whether it's in your local area or that you're able to watch on TV, it gets people out and about, and they can see the sport taking place. And it inspires people as well. It makes people think, maybe I should dust off that bike that's in my shed and have a go myself. And maybe I can conquer that hill that I've just seen the professional peloton ride up. So it all does have that trickle-down effect to various areas of the sport. And I know there's a big sort of major event strategy, particularly at British Cycling, for the various events that they're trying to put on this year across different disciplines. And that's really important as well. It's not just about road cycling, it's about mountain biking and cyclocross and track and BMX and all the other wonderful areas of the sport that we've got.
Absolutely, and the new creation of the urban event series, a track league concept coming in the next years too. So it's all part of a wider plan, not just the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain women and the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain men that will benefit from that support. It's certainly going to be felt throughout the whole community in cycling.
Yeah, I really hope so, and I think that multidiscipline approach is really important. Oh, we've got a little bit of a hold up here,
Just
Hannah.
a little pinch point over the Hunkback Bridge as we head over the canal. We are still in the neutralised section, just on the right-hand side in the white jersey, number 152. That's Anna Henderson, who sits second overall in the overall general classification at 17 seconds to Lotte Kopecky. Alice Barnes sitting quite far to the back as well in that orange jersey of Human Powered Health.
I don't think anybody came down there, but often can be very nervous moments in a neutralised section. So we talked about, it helps spin the legs and helps get sort of warmed up, but it's often a little bit harder when the pace is this slow. Let's see the camera shot from the front.
Well, the rain has been falling overnight, and you could just see the rider there from Das Hutchinson, Brother UK. Get a good shower this morning from the road and the spray, and you can see just from the light sprinkling and the glimmer on the tarmac of the rain that has fallen. Well, let's hope the rain keeps itself at bay as we take a look over the golf course. One of many in this area. It is forecast, Joe, for some showers later in the stage, and that can certainly have an effect if it is a shower and not necessarily a big downpour of rain. Sometimes that's a little bit more tricky with slick roads, it's slippery.
Yeah, I always think the tricky thing is when the weather changes throughout the course of the race. So if it's pouring with rain when you start, you're like, right, okay, I know what I need to wear in these conditions. It's when it changes throughout, it's like, do I go back for my rain jacket? Do I not? Do I just commit to it? If it's going to rain, I prefer it to be raining from the start.
Rain.
But we've got a question mark over what the weather could be like today. And like you say, chance of showers, definitely some windy conditions out there. So yeah, riders need to be very prepared for that. And there'll be riders that like racing in the rain. Some people do relish that. Some people perhaps don't relish it, but they know that it puts other people off and therefore they like it themselves. So a few different sort of psychology elements going on in the peloton now, perhaps.
Well, the red flag is out of the window held by Rod Ellingworth. They'll be approaching kilometer 0. You can just see it up ahead, that red board. Riders preparing themselves, ready for stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. The red car pulls away and the race is officially underway. It's the green jersey who leads through in Lotte Kopecky, 106.8 kilometres long, or if you're working in that way, 66.4 miles, 792 metres of elevation on today's stage, and one that's been asterisk for the sprinters today.
Certainly has. Big change today, the fact that we have got this flag to finish coverage, which we've not had the first 2 days, and that can sometimes change things in terms of if a team does know that they've got the TV coverage, potentially the opportunity to go in an early breakaway, any chance to get your team sponsors out there on TV, and already looking at the first attack about to go in now.
Hess Pro Cycling are one of the first teams to just try and put an injection of pace into the front of the peloton, along with Volker Wessel's Women's Pro Cycling, the Dutch squad. You can see visibly from the roads that the rain has fallen just before we've gotten to this point, and there's the Australian road race champion on the left-hand side in that white, green and gold jersey. It's Ruby Roseman Gannon. She's got a big job on her hands today. She's an excellent lead-out rider, but of course they want to try and protect Letizia Paternoster, not only for the sprint, but of course her placing in the general classification, because Pfeiffer Georgie isn't too far away from Letizia Paternoster. It's a matter of 4 seconds, and when we see that the time bonuses are on offer at the intermediate sprint and the finish line today, it's going to be hotly contested.
It certainly is. So yeah, time bonus is available, like you say, at the finish. A few ones also as well at the intermediate sprint. Just as I'm talking, another tap going in now, Hannah.
Valerie Demey, the Belgian rider from Volker Wessels, they want to try and make this aggressive today. They know that they've got Aline Janssen in that Best Young Riders classification. She sits 6th overall in the general classification, but they haven't got one standout rider who could perhaps go for the sprint today. And if they can try and make things hard, it's a tailwind. We head in an anti-clockwise direction. We're heading for and towards Northwich. All comes back together, and you can see everyone's very attentive at the front here, Joe.
Yeah, they certainly are. I think, any bike race where the wind is blowing, we always talk about racing in the Netherlands and Belgium, how much a crucial factor the wind can play. Slightly less so in the UK given the terrain. I know you've talked about this the last few days with the sort of hedgerows at the side of the road, and the roads aren't quite as exposed here as we do see on the continent. But any day when it's windy, when you're riding a bike race, you need to be attentive, you need to pay attention. Every single DS will be saying in the radio to their riders, make sure you're in the top 20, make sure you're in the top 20. Of course, there's 82 riders here, you can't all be in the top 20. So you'll notice that there are a few key riders that are always up there. I mean, Lotte Kopecky, you can see here, she's perfectly in second wheel at the moment behind the Luxembourg national champion, Christine Majerus. Lizzie Dagner's another rider, always in the right place at the right time. You do get a few riders that riding an big
crash on the right-hand side. Just avoiding that one was the British champion Pfeiffer Georgie, and that's one rider from Hess Pro Cycling in the green, white and black jersey who sadly has just suffered a crash on the right-hand side. just happens as the road just bears to the right, a touch of wheels, and she falls heavily there. That's Henrietta McWilliam. That was a hard fall there for the British rider. Well,
Stay there, stay there.
we hope that Alice McWilliam is okay, and we'll bring you any news when we receive it, but that was a nasty fall.
Yeah, it really was, and this is exactly why, like I said, the DSs will be saying make sure you're in the top 20. It's not necessarily about covering attacks, it's about you never know what's going to happen further in the bunch. But what I was going to say is there's some riders that riding in the front half of the bunch just does not come naturally at all, and you'll often get a few riders that lurk towards the back and just accept it. They're like, I'm going to stay here, but they'll pick a point on the course. They say, right, at this point, I need to get myself at the front. So for certain riders, you might see them happily staying at the back just because they know that it takes too much sort of mental effort to be able to stay there. But then when the key moments come, that's when they'll try and come to the front. You just see Lizzie Dylan in the shot here in the blue jersey as the Queen of the Mountain. Just saw her have a quick word in the radio there. Really intrigued what the British team are going to do today. We've spoken a lot about these roads being close to Manchester. Pretty much anybody that's come through the British cycling system will have lived in Manchester at some point. That's where British cycling are based. You know, whether you've gone off to do something different. I mean, Lizzie Dylan hasn't lived in Manchester for many years, but she'll still be familiar with these roads. I still remember training with her myself out on these roads of Cheshire many, many times. So I think for that whole GB team, plus DS Chris Newton, will be really familiar with the roads on this stage and really keen to use, you know, we always talk about home advantage, but it really does make a difference. You know, the peloton as a whole is not used to racing in the UK. We don't have days and days of racing like we do in certain places in the continent. You know, Spain, there's loads of races, Belgium, loads of bike racing, Netherlands, loads of bike racing. It's rarer here in the UK, so a good opportunity for the home riders.
Good opportunity for the home riders, and right on cue, it's another home rider in Joe Tindley of Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Hargreaves Contracting, who you could just see her lurking in the top 10, top 15 riders there, waiting for an opportunity to try and attack here in the country lanes in Cheshire. She's been marked immediately by Life Plus Wahoo. That looks like the figure of Maddie Leach, who's just wanted to try and get away. And these roads, they certainly benefit a breakaway here, Joe, because of their twisty, they're narrow in places as they head onto this wider open road, this more A road. There's Christine Majerus just in the background trying to patrol this one.
Yeah, really impressive move here. Jo Tinley has been racing as long as I can remember. She is incredibly skillful, incredibly tactically aware. And, you know, for her team here, Pro Noctis, 200 Degrees Coffee, Hargreaves Contracting, huge, you know, result for them to be at this race. You know, this was their big target, to get a ride in the Tour of Britain Women. And their sort of team slogan is more than a team. And they talk about no one individual is bigger than the team themselves. But I'd say Jo is, you know, probably the most experienced rider on that squad. And fair play to her, go on the attack here ever so early, like you say, taking advantage of the narrow roads that we have. We are now on a wider road, so the peloton will have them in their shots. So you can just see Maddie Leach taking a few little look back there, just working out how much you want to judge this effort. But it looks like Volker Vessel's on the front at the moment.
They're very keen to make sure that nothing gets away, and if something does, that they want to be involved in any moves, particularly in the early part of today's stage. They've always been very attentive as they take that left-hand turn into another narrow country road. And I have to say, we're bringing you all of this coverage via 4G, 5G technology, and because of this technology, we can bring you this coverage from the very start of the race until the very end, and we can see how all of these breakaways are formed. So it's brilliant to be able to see how the early parts of a race happen, Joe, and just how difficult it is for a breakaway to go away. But yeah, bringing all of this through 5G and 4G.
Yeah, it really tells the full story of the bike race. And we saw a really good shot there from the back of the peloton. We've just gone back to our breakaway now, where you could see quite how strung out it was. So you can see here now, you know, the more across the road the peloton is spread, the sort of slower the pace, essentially. And you can just see the pace is easing off a little bit here. So the peloton are riding hard in pursuit of our two breakaway riders, but the pace seems to have come off a little bit now. This could mean that they're perhaps letting them go. What I'd really like to see is riders try and go across rather than try and bring them back. But, you know, you never know exactly what tactics pockets each team is going to have. So we just work our way around that tricky bend there. But as you say, out of sight, not quite out of mind just yet, but these sort of roads really do lend themselves to a breakaway far better than the big wide roads. Quite a contrast to the sort of roads we've got coming towards the finish, but also at the moment, overall, quite a strong tailwind as well. So everyone is moving quite quickly. So it can be hard to get that jump and make that breakaway. But they're giving it a good go, and you can see the peloton is still very strong out here.
And you can see at the back how much effort you're having to put in, because when you see that the tail end of the peloton, that elastic is being stretched, that concertina effect is coming back, and already some riders, this is Abby Plowman in the blue jersey for Alba Development Road Team, the Scottish-based professional team. There's only so many times you can make those big accelerations to make your way back on when the peloton is in that concertina effect.
Yeah, and all of those add up throughout the day, but even more so add up throughout the stage race. And for anybody that's not used to racing in the UK, because we don't have a lot of World Tour races here, for the British riders, they'll be well used to it. But for anyone not so used to that, you get these beautiful, smooth roads in Spain and in other places on the continent. Very, very different here in the UK. So I think that can have even more of an effect. Just as I'm talking now, Hannah, it looks like we have got one rider trying to come across, which is really promising for these front two to get an extra rider there.
If they can have another rider within this breakaway, it certainly gives them more time to rest, recover. It looks as though it's a jersey of Das Hutchinson Brother UK. They have come with Lucy Lee, who has been having a great race so far. Of course, she was the rider who took the gamble on stage one. She attacked with 10 kilometers to go from that peloton, and she ended up hanging on and taking 10th place on the stage. They've also got Tiffany Keep, Alice Sharp, Kiva O'Brien, Ruth Shear and Darcy Richards. It might be on paper a flat stage with a little less than 800 meters of elevation, but these roads are hard. They're quite stressful to navigate.
That's a really good word, actually, Hannah. It's you can never really relax. I'd say in some ways it can make it easier being in a breakaway, because you can pick your line on the corners and you can see a little bit further ahead. When you're back in the bunch like this, when there's so many twists and turns, there are some potholes, there are some puddles, and you're not quite sure how deep they are, that can be quite, I think stressful is actually the perfect word for it when you're in the bunch. You get less roads like this where you can really relax and just settle in, and a lot of roads where it's constantly concentrating on and off the brakes, in and out the saddle.
This is Kiva O'Brien, the 22-year-old Irish rider of Das Hutchinson Brother UK. She's the rider who is in pursuit of Joe Tindley and Madeline Leach at the moment. She's the sole chaser, and she's sensed the danger of the potential that this breakaway could be the breakaway of the day. She knows, and she'll know just how strong Madeline Leach and Joe Tindley are, having raced domestically here in Great Britain. And so she's got a work cut out, because you can see the advantage already that Tindley and Leach have gained.
Yeah, riding with the tailwind here, so giving it a really, really good go to go across solo here. Really impressed that the peloton have sort of allowed riders individually to go across. That is, really, really exciting if they can try and make a breakaway of 3 of the riders from British teams be out there. And you can see the wind here on the leaves of the trees, but she's taking all the right lines here. She can pick exactly which line she wants to take, try and get across on her own. You can see her tucking down there on the drops, trying to get as aerodynamic as possible. Big effort to try and get to that breakaway.
And even looking when you can see the cadence of a rider, she's got a great cadence, a great rhythm, but she's right at the bottom of the block already. Such is the speed of the tailwind behind.
Yeah, really fast section of the course at the moment. So once we get a bit further in, we can see sort of what sort of speed the peloton are averaging. But at the moment, it is hard work trying to go across, but she has got the tailwind behind her. And if the bunch sort of continues to sort of let riders go as individuals, it's going to be a hard effort to get across to the breakaway. But once they're there, really valuable to have a third rider. It's currently just the 2 at the moment, which does make it a long, hard day out. Of course, there's no missing turns when there's just 2 of you until you come towards the finish, and then you can play a little bit of cat and mouse. But at the moment, they're, of course, sharing the work nicely. But a third rider, maybe a 4th or 5th, would be really, really valuable in this situation.
In terms of the general classification, our 2 leaders are no threat to the overall leader, Lotte Kopecky. Joe Tindley currently sits 60th overall at 11 minutes and 53 seconds. Madeline Leach, meanwhile, is 78th overall at 21 minutes and 55 seconds. Our chaser is at 6 seconds. This is Kiva O'Brien. She's at 10 minutes and 13 seconds. So should Kiva O'Brien make the junction here, we've got 3 riders who are no threat to SD Works Pro Time in the overall for the classification, they'll be quite happy and content with the situation on the road. They can keep a good control.
Yeah, they will, and they've got enough strength in their team that they'll be able to protect both Kopecky as the overall leader and Wiebes as a potential winner of the stage, but with still 4 other really strong riders that can do the work if they want to bring this back, as and when they do. So if I were them, I'd probably not be panicking at this stage. You know, it's not a huge breakaway. No one from a World Tour team has gone away yet, and like you say, nobody that is a real threat on GC. So it'll be really a case of SD Works if they do let this break establish itself and get, you know, perhaps a few minutes. It's making the decision at what point they want to start trying to bring that back in. And of course that's the art of professional cycling, and making that calculation and making sure you reel in a breakaway just in time for the bunch sprint and not opening yourself up to counter attacks. I'm perhaps getting ahead of myself here. We're still very early on in the stage, but it does seem to be shaping up that way perhaps.
But we do have masterminds within a peloton of calculating a gap of a breakaway and making sure that they have done the calculations correctly in order to bring back a breakaway, not too early but not too late, making sure that they can deliver their sprinter and their leader. If you're just joining us, welcome to stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. This is stage 3, starting and finishing in Warrington. We're heading anti-clockwise direction out into Cheshire East. We head towards Macclesfield and then up through Shrigley and Bollington, over to Adlington, over through Chorley and back towards Knutsford, heading through Mere at the intermediate sprint, the one and only intermediate sprint of the day, before making our way back to Warrington. We've got 4 World Tour teams here at the start. That's SD Works Pro Time, Team DSM Firmenich, Post NL, Liv Jayco, Alula and Human Powered Health. We've got 10 continental teams in Cofidis, Volker Vessels, San Michel Mavic Aubert 93, Life Plus Wahoo, Hess Pro Cycling, Dolcini O'Shea, Torelli, Das Hutchinson Brother UK, Alba Development Road Team and Pro Noctis 200 Degrees. Hargreaves Contracting, to give them their full name. And we've got 1 national team. That's the Great Britain national team, which is currently led by their leader, Anna Henderson. Meanwhile, we have 1 rider who has managed to bridge across to Kiva O'Brien, and it's a compatriot. It's Amelia Tyler, who races for the Alba Development Road Team. We've got 2 riders from Ireland trying to bridge across here, and this will give Kiva O'Brien some moments of respite, some moments to get a breath back after that long, fast chase.
Yeah, this is absolutely perfect for Kiva O'Brien, the rider from Das Hutchinson Brother UK, who was the first rider to try and get across. Just gone back to the peloton, looks like another rider now from Volker Vessels also trying to make this jump across. And let's try and see what response the bunch is having from behind. Looks like Hess Cycling Team also trying to respond to that, and the Great Britain Cycling Team. But Lotte Kopecky is right there.
She's right there. It was Millie Cousins just shutting that move down immediately in the white jersey for the Great Britain national team. And so they can really start to sense the danger, particularly when you see a jersey like Volker Vessels Women's Pro Cycling go up the road. Of course, they've been having such a brilliant performance so far. You've got Eileen Janssen 6th overall. They've got Margot van Pachtenbaker 13th overall. They've been up there in the stage results too.
Yeah, Volker Vessels Women's Pro Cycling Team, you know, for years, various different names, have been so consistent, really good at developing riders, and they always seem to race really well. There's a lot of riders that are sort of up-and-coming riders, and you mentioned Margot van Pechtenbecker. She's been really impressive with some good stage results in the first 2 days. And like you say, Eileen Janssen in that white Leeds jersey. So, but I'm thinking there's a lot of teams in this peloton at the moment that will have been told by their DSs, if there's a break, make sure you're in it, and they've now missed it. And so some serious work to do. At the moment, Joe Tindley and Maddie Leach are working really well together. I do hope the other 2 riders can get across to them when we get a breakaway of 4 riders. Be interesting to know what the time gap is between these 2 sets of riders on the road. But as you can see from these shots here, they can't see the front 2 leaders at the moment. So they are out of sight on these roads.
Well, still the action continues behind, because Hess Pro Cycling are adamant in trying to bridge across here. They're one of the invited 6 British UCI Continental teams who are here racing at the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Right away, it's Volker Vessels who respond to that, and Eleanor Backstead of the Great Britain national team. Christine Majeris is there, the Luxembourgish champion, in that red, white and light blue jersey, and Tennille Campbell immediately responds too. But so much injection of pace our two chasers are going to be caught, Joe.
Yeah, real shame for both of them. Both gave it a really good go to try and come across to our two leaders, but just shows how fast the race is moving at the moment, quite how keen everybody is to try and be in that breakaway. We're just focusing in on Maddie Leach at the moment of Life Plus Wahoo. She's away with Joe Tindley. Not quite sure exactly what the gap is between those two riders and the peloton, but you can see that those two chasers tried to they tried to come across, they got swallowed up, but slight lull in pace now.
Tyler and O'Brien caught by the peloton. Our chasers are caught, but we've still got our two leaders out front. 42 seconds is the advantage. And Tindley and Leech, Tindley in the red jersey, Leech in that lime green and purple jersey. They're working well together. They're sharing the workload. They would have liked the prospect of two more riders joining this breakaway currently, but the peloton had other ideas. We've just left Great Budworth a kilometre or so ago, which is just 6.5 kilometres north of Northwich, quite close to Budworth Mere and Pickmere. Not too far away if you're a fan of One Direction and Harry Styles. He grew up nearby here. It was one of his favourite ice cream shops of Harry Styles. Taylor Swift has been here as well.
Now that's a fun fact.
It
All the superstars.
If you're a Swiftie.
Coming to Cheshire. Just see Maddie Leach flicking her elbow there, indicating that she wants Joe Tindley to come through and do a turn. Maddie Leach, a really strong rider, the Under-23 National Time Trial Champion. She took that title around this time last year in 2023. So we know that she'll be a really strong rider to be away in a breakaway like this. And we've already spoken about the experience of Joe Tindley and, you know, how keen all of these British teams are to get themselves up there on today's stage. It was nice to see that time gap of 42 seconds. I think psychologically you can get over a minute. That's really nice to have. But I always think anything over 30 seconds does feel that little bit safer. So I'm glad they're past the 30-second mark, but really looking for that 1 minute lead, ideally.
They'll be looking to grow that advantage that they have as one more rider from Das Hutchinson, Brother UK, decides they want to try and bridge across. They're really animated, this British team today, because they've had perhaps a quite few days, barring the result of Lucy Lee on day one. They're trying to find the feet. This is a big step up for the UCI Continental team to be racing in a UCI Women's World Tour race. But today they've really bookmarked this stage as one of their days, and well, it is the informed Lucy Lee, who celebrated her 26th birthday 2 days ago on stage one into Llandudno. She's on pursuit and she's in chase of our two leaders.
I just think she must be full of so much confidence after stage one and what she was able to do there, and just about holding off the peloton towards the end. And, you know, she's given it another go. It's only a 4-day stage race. It's, you know, at this point, once you've past the halfway point, you're like, right, okay, we know we've got a slightly shorter stage tomorrow, under that 100k mark for tomorrow's stage. This is a big opportunity for anybody that perhaps knows they're not going to be the best on the climbs, because we have got some tougher climbs tomorrow, to really try and do something. If we wait for this to go to a brunch sprint, we could pretty much predict who our top three are going to be. I mean, anything can happen. You know, you never know.
You never know.
We'll look forward
You
to what
never
happens
know.
there. But for all these teams, I love that everyone is really giving it a go and just trying anything they can to really take it to the World Tour riders. There's not many times you get this opportunity in sport in general, but in professional cycling, for the smaller teams to come and have so many of them at one of these bigger races like this. So really just trying absolutely anything that she can here. Looking forward to seeing if she is able to see our two breakaway riders. Currently not in the shot that we just had there, so don't know quite how far she's got to go across to them.
92 kilometres to go on stage 3 as we head towards Winkham. For these smaller teams, Joe, of course, making a strategy of what they want to achieve across the 4 days is very different to Team SD Works Pro Time or Liv Alula Jayco. Where do they start to look at what they want to achieve from the race and come away from the race?
I think every day is a fresh start. Every day is an opportunity where you think, you know, we know where the GC is after that big breakaway on stage one. So at this point, I would try and not think too much about tomorrow. I'd be thinking about what can I get out of today. There's sprint with bonus seconds, there's Queen of the Mountains points. You're not going to get past Lizzie Dykeman for the overall Queen of the Mountains today. There's only 2 third category climbs, but there's opportunities to race, there's opportunities to get away, and opportunities to try anything you can, really. Just seeing 30 seconds for our 2 leaders here back to the chaser, I believe, but we are on now one of these wider roads that we spoke about, Hannah. We've got a lot of these very narrow roads which really play into the hands of any riders in a breakaway. Tougher on these wide, fast roads, because when the peloton does get them in their sights, that's going to motivate everybody that's thinks they've got a chance of trying to come across to give it a go. But that time gap there, very crucial.
That is very crucial. 1 minute and 2 seconds for our leaders to the peloton. So it means that Lucy Lee only has 30 seconds to try and close to these 2 riders out front, and they'll be wanting and willing Lucy Lee to come across. But when they hear through their ears from the sports directors in the car, and for Maddie Leach, she's got Margozata Jazinska, who was a fantastic professional herself. And then for Joe Tindley, she's got Alan Gornell and Phil Kelly in the car. When they hear that 1 minute and 2 seconds, that must give them a real boost of confidence.
It really does. Yeah, there's something about that 1 minute barrier that sounds so much better than 59 seconds. So they'll very, very much take that. Hearing that they've got somebody trying to come across as well, this is a difficult moment because they can't ease off it. They haven't got enough of a lead to sort of sit up and wait for a chaser. They've got to hope that she's able to do it themselves and keep working hard together. On any race like this where you have got flatter roads and these sort of conditions, making that breakaway from the peloton is the hardest bit, because we've seen so many people try and counter-attack and everybody jump on their wheel. And, once you've got the likes of Christine Majerus, Lotte Kopecky jump on your wheel, it's all over. Once you've got this gap, you do not want to lose it. So they'll be working as hard as they can to stay away, but just hoping that that chaser is able to come across to them. And every time they go into these narrower roads, very much plays into their hands.
Plays into their hands, and they'll be hoping to try and extend their advantage and build on that 1 minute and 2 second advantage as they head into Plumley. Great to see so many locals who are roadside, perhaps watching the race for the very first time. Perhaps cycling is a sport that they have on their radar. It's not something they traditionally watch, but to be able to see it come past your front door is something incredible. And also we see lots of school children. We've seen that over the last couple of days, Joe, which has been a wonderful sight. Of course, today it'll be perhaps different, but still the big crowds are expected.
Yeah, and that's something that's really sort of unique to bike racing, that it comes out to the people. It can literally go past your front door or into your town centre. You haven't got to pay for tickets. You haven't got to queue up to get into a stadium. It is one of the most accessible forms of sport, and that is what makes it tricky to put on a bike race. We spoke about that earlier, and that how well British cycling have been able to do to make this race happen. But it is also the beauty of the sport and the way that people can just come out and watch, and it is completely free, and it can take you by surprise. You can sort of stumble across a bike race you didn't know it was about to happen. I'm sure all the local houses and communities will have been informed of the bike race coming, of course, and the local council's very much on board with the event. But that is something that is, I think, really special about bike racing. And I've spoken to a few people this week that have previously had the Women's Tour of Britain in its previous forms come through the towns where they live, and they've just had that sort of nice surprise, like, oh wow, I'm able to show my kids a professional cycling event. So really special for any of these little towns and villages that are on the way. Lots of small communities out here in Cheshire, and also a very big cycling area. Lots of really big cycling clubs around here. And here we've got some fans there out with their flag as well.
There's a huge cycling community, isn't there? We already saw lots of jersey from the Weaver Valley Cycling Club over towards Northwich. They'd made the trip out, and it's of course traditional on a Saturday for many club runs. Everyone can come by bike to try and watch parts of the stage, and due to the nature of the course, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that you can get from one part of the course to the other, particularly where we are now around Lower Pever and Plumley, to then get across over to Knutsford and watch over at Mere too.
Yeah, you're exactly spot on, Hannah. Just a small amount of planning and you'll be able to see the riders in a couple of points. And of course, anybody in Warrington will have seen the riders start and they'll be there for the finish. But I think this area in particular, like you say, lots of big cycling clubs around here. Really, really nice roads to ride on. Anybody that lives in Manchester often heads out into Cheshire. Then you've got all those Cheshire towns as well. You've got Macclesfield that we're going to go near as well. But yeah, there's some really good points in this course where you can, if you make a little bit of effort into your route planning, see the riders a couple of times. We've always really got plenty of cyclists out here ready to see the Women's Pro Peloton come through.
Nearby here in Lower Pever, you've got the Elizabethan Pever Hall. It was the General George Patton's headquarters ahead of D-Day, which of course we celebrated the 80th anniversary just 2 days ago. That was his headquarters, with Patton meeting the General Dwight Eisenhower in the Lower Pever's pub in the Bells of Pever for lunch. To this day, the Stars and Stripes still fly outside to mark that meeting. So many key points around Cheshire and Cheshire East. So much history has taken place. If you're just joining us, welcome to stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. This is our Warrington stage, 106.8 kilometres long. We've got 2 riders in the breakaway. That was all started by Jo Tindley. Immediately it was Maddie Leach who reacted to that from Life Plus War, who we've had 2 riders who've attempted to try and bridge across. That was Kiva O'Brien and Amelia Tyler. 2 riders from Ireland racing for their respective teams of Das Hutchinson Brother UK and Alba Development Road Team. That all came back together. We saw plenty of moves from Volker Vessel's Pro Cycling until it was Lucy Lee who has been trying to bridge across, the rider who finished 10th on stage 1, taking her first ever top 10 in a UCI Women's World Tour race. And behind, they're quite happy with the situation on the road. No one's a threat in the general classification. Lucy Lee, if she bridges across, she would be the highest placed rider in the general classification at 8 minutes and 28 seconds. Thanks for joining us from wherever you're watching around the world. My name's Hannah Walker. Alongside me today is Joanna Rousel. You can just see Elena Cecchini on the far left of the peloton, the right-hand side of the screen as we see it. The sun's coming out, Joe, which is a good sight after the rain earlier on today.
Yeah, well, this is this challenge that I was speaking about earlier, when the weather changes throughout the race. We've seen a few riders there in the gilets. I've seen Eleanor Baxter in that sort of almost fluorescent yellow gilet for the Great Britain cycling team. And this is when you need to start thinking about, am I going to change my clothes? Am I going to take the chance to go back to the team car? Am I going to send a teammate back to the team car to take any layers off, or am I going to stick it out and wear what I'm wearing? So bit of decision making at this point in the race, but you can see the pace here in the peloton currently quite steady. We've got 3 big teams towards the front. We've got ST Works on the far right with Christine Majerus. She's in the red, white and blue jersey of the Luxembourg national champion. In the middle of the shot are team DSM Firmenich NL, and they've of course got Pfeiffer Georgi in their team and Charlotte Kool, who's one of the superstar sprinters that we're hoping can challenge Lorena Wiebes. Then on the left hand side, Liv Alula Jaco, and they've got a really interesting sort of setup for today with Letizia Paternoster as a potential sprinter, but also trying to maintain that spot on GC. So you can see 3 of the big teams here have really got themselves organised, looking after their team leaders. And just behind Christine Majerus is the Great Britain cycling team, and I have just spied Lizzie Dylan in the blue jersey also up there, always in a very good position.
She's excellent to position herself in a peloton, tactically always very astute. 87 kilometres to go. I want to pick your brains about Team DSM Firmenich Post NL and what they could do today, because they've of course got to protect the interests of Pfeiffer Georgi for that general classification. She's 4 seconds from the podium currently, and all it would take is some bonus seconds over today's stage just to try and edge Letizia Paternoster out. But of course they've got Charlotte Kool, who's looking for a first victory of the season. So how do you balance 2 objectives and 2 strategies?
They can work well together, and what I'm thinking of is the bonus seconds at the end of the stage. So there's bonus seconds at the sprint, the intermediate sprint. There's also bonus seconds right at the stage finish, and they are larger bonuses, 10, 6 and 4 for the first 3 over the line. Now, if it does come to a bunch sprint, big if, but if it does come to a bunch sprint, you know, we're looking at Lorena Wiebes, we're looking at Charlotte Kool as a rider who could be up there. It will be really key for them to make sure she is up there, because Letizia Paternoster, also a superstar sprinter, and she's the closest rider to Pfeiffer Georgi on GC. She's the one just ahead of Pfeiffer Georgi. So you wouldn't want Paternoster to get any more bonus seconds in that sprint or in the intermediate sprint. So Charlotte Kool could actually be really useful for Pfeiffer Georgi in terms of taking those bonus seconds away from Letizia Paternoster. Obviously, to try and get Pfeiffer Georgi ahead of Paternoster, that's going to take some different tactics in itself. But I would say the fact that Pfeiffer is right up there and Cool is such a strong sprinter, they can use that to help Pfeiffer when it comes to the bonus seconds. And I think we saw that yesterday with Charlotte Cool going for some of the intermediate seconds, and we were sort of thinking, oh, why is that? But I know you spoke about that and saying it's really key to take it off other people. So the two ambitions can work well together. I would love to see Pfeiffer Georgie on the podium as the British champion. I would really say tomorrow was the day to really, really target that.
In terms of the roads and her attributes as a rider, if she's looking for a stage victory, tomorrow's parkour suits Pfeiffer Georgie down to the ground. We've got plenty of climbing. It's a short stage. We start from the Manchester Villa Park. We finish in Lee, 99 kilometres long. But you've got that undulation. We climb the Rake, which of course is a famous climb in the northwest of England. For Pfeiffer Georgie, she's just got to make sure that she doesn't lose time today. And of course, on each and every stage here, we've got the 3 kilometre rule. So any problems, crashes, mechanicals, they'll be given the same time as the group they're in. But for Pfeiffer Georgie, it's big pressure on the shoulders too.
It is, but what's interesting about tomorrow, you mentioned the terrain really suits it. We've got 2 categorised climbs tomorrow that are both first category climbs. There are a lot more climbs tomorrow that aren't categorised. Slightly upsetting for me because I know there's some very hilly roads around there that I used to train on. I'm like, why are they not even categorised? That should be at least a second cat. But I think it's another one of those stages where on paper it's shorter, it's under 100 kilometres, which psychologically does feel that little bit shorter. Still 1,400 metres of altitude gain, but a lot of, like I say, uncategorised climbs where if you know the roads, or if you've got a DS that knows the roads, or if you've done your homework yourself, could be an opportunity for some really aggressive racing once again. And Pfeiffer Georgie is a rider that I've really highlighted for potential for tomorrow's stage. We know she likes to race aggressively. We know she can finish fast as well. So very much looking forward to that one.
And we know that the team likes to race aggressively too, because yesterday when they had Francisca Koch in that solo breakaway, they were wanting to try and send more riders across. Danny Kankeveld had tried, Abby Smith had tried on a couple of occasions, Raquel Barbieri too. So they're a team who are really wanting to try and stop the dominance of one team in particular, and that team has taken all of the glory in terms of the stage victory so far after 2 stages of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. The gap to the 2 leaders is just over 2 minutes and 10 seconds, and they look content with this. You can see Chantal van den Broek-Black on the front, the former world champion, just denoted by those rainbow stripes on the cuffs of her sleeves and just around the collar in that purple jersey. She's been the rider who's put to work on the front to keep things all under control. And moments ago, we just saw a little discussion, a little conversation between Chantal van den Broek-Black and Lotte Kopecky, who you can see there in that green jersey. She always looks so calm, composed. Nothing seems to faze her. I think perhaps has that come with all of the success she's achieved in the last 3-4 years?
I think Lotte Kopecky's always been a strong all-rounder. Earlier on in her career, she was earmarked as more of a sprint rider. Over the years, she's shown just how versatile she is. I mean, she's the world champion. She would be in the rainbow jersey if she weren't in the race leaders jersey. Races on the track as well as the roads, and clearly a very strong personality in the team, but is also really willing to work for others. And we've seen her and Lorena Vibes, they both re-signed with SD Works going forward for a number of years. And although they cross over with the sort of races they can win, it does actually seem to work, which is really interesting because often you have 2 team leaders in a team that are very different riders. One that might be a real sprinter, one might be a real climber. Her and Vibes do cross over a lot in terms of their ability, but they seem to still be able to sort of complement each other and both take wins. Vibes took 3 wins a couple of weeks ago at Ride London. Lotte's got 2 wins this week already, so it seems to work.
It certainly does seem to work, and they seem to have a really good combination and cohesion together. As the blackboard shown to Lucy Lee, she's got 50 seconds to the 2 leaders who are out front. It's just over 2 minutes to the peloton for these 2 leaders, and hearing that through the race radio, they'll be delighted with their cohesion and trust that they've got together, Madeline Leach and Jo Tindley. You don't have to go far to watch professional sport if it passes your front door, do you, when you watch a cycling race? Get the deck chair out. It's great to see the flags and the Olympic flag there on the left-hand side. Of course, a big, big year, which many riders will be using this race, not only, of course, to gain some results, but in big preparation. It'll be vital preparation for the Olympic Games, not just for the track, but also the road race.
Yeah, it certainly will be, and the more exposure you can get to this level of competition, this is not the time in the season to back off. There'll be a lot of riders that are very much thinking about that Olympic road race, Olympic time trial, and of course the track competitions at the Olympics. A lot of nations have announced their teams, a few haven't, so there's a few that we are waiting to hear on the selection, and we never quite know whether that's because selection isn't decided or if it's just not been announced yet. But there'll be a lot of riders thinking about that. Of course, it's the big thing, and it's Olympic Games in the European time zone, which we've not had since the London Games. We've had two in very different time zones, and we're going to have two more in very different time zones. So a huge opportunity for any European-based riders to have those sort of home fans able to watch them.
The leading duo passed through Goostrey, a small village in Cheshire, which is also steeped in a lot of cycling. There's plenty of local time trials, local 10-mile time trials that take place in this area. And this village in particular has a history tracing back to 1 BC and a 1,200-year-old yew tree in the church grounds. It's probably a big focal point for the community as far back as the Dark Ages. If you're into your fruit, gooseberry growing is very popular as a tradition in the village. You've got the annual Gooseberry Show, which is taking place here. It's a famed show. If you're into gooseberries, maybe jam.
I'm learning lots. Thank you, Hannah.
It's all right. I'm giving it you for free. It's also the home of the new residence of a certain Sir Alex Ferguson. Behind it's all very calm, isn't it? And the team who are, I guess the onus is on them to make sure that they take control here. It is on SD Works Pro Time. We saw that yesterday when we had Franziska Koch in the breakaway, but they never waste any time to just get themselves into formation. They know it's their job. They know with Danish Dam in the car, he'll be saying, well, it's time to get to work now. Make sure you keep this well within striking distance. Make sure you don't give them too much of an advantage, as the lone chaser, Lucy Lee, has 47 seconds to this leading duo here. Shown the blackboard once again. And there we have it, 3 minutes. 3 minutes for our leading duo to the peloton. That'll give them some encouragement there for the work that they've been doing.
That'll give them a lot of encouragement. They've been working really hard to establish this gap, and what was fascinating was when Jo Tindley made that first attack, initially there was quite a big chase behind her, and she had a handful of bike plates. It would have been so easy at that point just to have sat up and said, okay, I need to wait, I need to go again. But she pushed on, and now that gap has established itself. Like you say, the onus is on SD Works to do the chasing. Or a couple of dogs just making a little trip out onto the road there.
Keep them on the leads.
Just about okay. Really good to see the crowds out there. I think those dogs were on leads, but having a little bit of a wonder what's happening out in the road.
On a short lead.
Yeah, short leads, please, if possible. But yeah, the onus is on SD Works to do the chasing. If I were on another team and I had a sprinter that I thought I would like to see how they can do in the finish here, I still would not be doing any work whatsoever. The onus is on them. They've got the strongest sprinter in the peloton. They've got the overall race leader, who's also the world champion. If I were another team, I would not want to do a tap whatsoever. The thing is, when you do get a breakaway going up to sort of that 3 minute mark, I always used to think when I was in the peloton, when I saw that sort of time gap, I was like, this is going to get hard later on, because at some point a big team is going to do the work to try and bring this back. And with the strength of SD Works, it's probably going to be successful, but it does mean the pace in the bunch is going to ramp up and up and up as the stage goes on. The bigger that gap gets, the harder the back end of the bike race is going to be. So the more important it is to look after yourself and follow the right wheels, because they have got the strength to bring it back. But all the other riders that want to be up there in the sprint need to make sure they're following the right place, not caught out on the wrong side of any splits or on any sort of windy sides of the bunch.
And I guess particularly as we're coming up to almost 45 minutes of racing, making sure that you're keeping on top of your nutrition, your fueling strategy, hydration, using the opportunities where possible when the pace and the stress perhaps inside the peloton isn't too stressful. As we go through the first feeding point, anyone wanting to go back to cars now, wants to go past this point here in Twemlow, they can officially go back to the bar and get some drinks and some food.
Yeah, so really important to stay on top of that nutrition, and it will be something that is very much ingrained to the riders that are full-time professionals, or the riders on the World Tour teams. We can't forget that for some of these continental teams, the riders won't be full-time bike riders. They might be juggling a job, they might be juggling studying, it could be anything else going on in their lives. But for the World Tour teams, we have a minimum salary. They will be full-time bike riders. But for everybody else that's not used to racing stage races week in, week out, really important to remember that nutrition, and also so easy to forget when you're concentrating so hard on roads like this, which are often narrow. Often there's a few potholes here, there's lots of change in direction. They're not sort of big, wide roads you can relax on. Really important to have that reminder that you've got to keep feeding, and you have to start eating before you're hungry, start drinking before you're thirsty, doing all the basics right that you're taught from a young age as a bike rider. But it's so easy to forget that in the heat of the moment on race day, especially if it is a big race that you don't always get to do often in your calendar.
We've seen that over the last couple of years, haven't we? Some big names have finished a race with complete fatigue. They've had what you call the bonk in cycling, where they've got nothing left in the tank. I remember Tom Pidcock being one of those in Amstel Gold Race last year, and he'd said afterwards he just simply didn't eat, drink enough. The tank was empty. He still had a great race. He was right up there fighting for the victory. But it shows it might be something small, but sometimes when you've got so many other things to think about, some things slip your mind. And like you say, Joe, depending on the weather conditions, sometimes you don't feel like you need to drink or eat at that point.
Yeah, it happens to the best riders. Like you say, it can happen to anybody, and particularly in a stage race, particularly also, we mentioned a couple of times, today's stage is 106 kilometres, tomorrow's 99 kilometres. They're on the shorter side of distances on the World Tour. Very easy to think to yourself, I'm going to be fine. And right on cue, Joe Tindley is taking on board some nutrition. What brilliant riding there by Joe.
That earpiece she's got in is not her race radio to a sports director. It's just direct to the commentary. She's listening live on the live stream. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, so it's so important. It's important for everybody at any level. Doesn't matter how many years you've been racing. You still need to fuel your body for these races. And often some of the slightly shorter stages that are, around that 100k mark or even just under can be raced really aggressively, especially for these riders who are out in the breakaway. They're of course working really hard, but everyone in the peloton as well cannot forget the basics.
In terms of food, and we saw Joe eating there, we've seen a couple of riders. We saw Maddie Leach just as we entered into Twemlow taking on a gel. What kind of things for a stage like this would riders want to have, particularly in the early parts of a stage?
Yeah, first of all, very much personal preference. So each team will normally have a nutrition sponsor who will provide sort of energy bars and gels. But a lot of riders will like to have some real food, particularly in a stage race when you need to take on board that nutrition day after day. You don't want to necessarily be having all gels all the time. Of course, you've got energy drink in your bottles as well. So some of the teams will have the soigneurs make themselves rice cakes, and that can be really nice to have a little bit of sort of solid real food.
This is Jodrell Bank, the observatory, Cheshire's UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's actually a site of outstanding universal value, home of that iconic Lovell telescope and the brand new First Light Pavilion Visitor Centre. That opened only a couple of years ago, back in 2022 in the summer of that year, and for 75 years, and you and I have ridden past Jodrell Bank on so many occasions, Joe, it's been a world-leading science research institute. It's always been pushing the boundaries of knowledge and understanding the universe. We continue to work at the cutting edge of modern astrophysics, and there's also that new awareness of the importance of those early developments that take place here too. It's been at the heart of many recent and historic space explorations, and not least the use of the Lovell telescope in the space race. Team at Jodrell were crucial in monitoring the lunar activities and the Eagle lander in 1969. There you can see Lucy Lee heading towards Jodrell Bank. There's actually a little Jodrell Bank as well. There's a mini one, isn't there, as well?
I was going to say, in terms of bike racing, I mean, everything you've just said is really fascinating, but there's been a number of times when I've been lost out on the Cheshire lanes, and being able to see the big Jodrell Bank telescope has been able to help me get home. I'm talking about...
a reference point.
Yeah, a reference point to aim for. You're like, right, okay, if I know I can get to that, I then know the way back. This is, of course, before the days of having Google Maps on your smartphone in your back pocket. When I first made the move to Manchester, we weren't quite there with technology. It's showing my age a little bit there, but there's been a number of times where I've been like, right, if I aim for that, I then know the way home. So, yeah, really iconic landmark. park in this part of Cheshire, you can see it for many miles because the terrain is flatter around here. And yeah, when you sort of get to there, you know that, you know, wherever you're heading towards, whether you're heading towards Chelford on your way back into Manchester at the home of your training ride, you can sort of know where you're going.
You can use the old school way. Fortunately, it measures at 250 foot, so it makes it the third largest steerable telescope in the world, and it's the guidance point for Joe Rousel.
Yeah, there we go.
This is one rider who has transformed herself into being a protected race leader, Elena Cecchini, the former Italian road race champion. You can just see those green, white and red bands of the Italian tricolor on the cuffs of her sleeves and the collar. She's gone from being one of those riders that could win races. She's been the team time trial world champion in the past, back in 2018 in Innsbruck. But now she's such a crucial rider for Team SD Works Pro Time to do this kind of work on the front. She can ride kilometre after kilometre after kilometre to keep control of breakaways like this.
Yeah, well, when you've got riders that are former national champions like Elena Cecchini and former world champions like Chantal van den Broek back as essentially your domestiques, when they like to say,
not a bad team, is it?
you're doing pretty well. Yeah, so, you know, SD Works are absolutely stacked full of talent as a team. And Elena Cecchini, like you say, she's a rider that can do a bit of everything, a really valuable teammate to have. And so experienced as well, so calm, very used to getting herself in the right place at the right time in the peloton. And she's the rider on the front at the moment. And I think you've just spoken about the band showing that she's a former Italian champion. And then Chantal van den Broek just behind her with the world champion band showing that she's a former world champion. Very few riders wearing a plain SD Works jersey ever, even if they're not the current champion. There's always a little something on there showing what they've previously won.
It's incredible, isn't it, to see the talent that Danish Dam is able to acquire within that team, and of course Owen Janssen, the owner of the team too, of the talent that has also come through that. And we also have to give a special mention to Anna Shackley, who sadly was forced to retire due to a heart problem only a matter of a few weeks ago, which was incredibly sad news. She went to the Tokyo Olympic Games alongside Lizzie Deignan back in 2021, and she's a former points race national champion on the track, and she won that title back in 2020, just before the COVID-19 pandemic. An excellent performance, and for her, she's had to retire at a very early age. She's in the car actually with the Alba Development Road team as one of their sports directors, so learning the trade, she's giving her advice and assistance to the Scottish-based UCI Continental team.
Yes, I believe they're going to put her through the official UCI DS training course, so she'll be able to be a DS for the Alba Development Road team going forward, which is really nice that she's able to stay in the sport and keep her expertise. And it's really nice to see more women coming into the DS roles. I remember back in my day, I can't really recall any female DSs when I was racing. It was very rare. There are more and more ex-pros now in that position. I think we've got Georgia Bronzini here with Human Powered Health. And we know that Anna van der Breggen, not here this week, but is one of the DSs for the Team SD Works Pro Time. There's a number of retired riders that are sort of taking on those DS roles now, which is really good to see. And I think that combination of experience of having raced in the peloton yourself, and the women's side of the sport is different to the men's. Not necessarily better or worse, just some of our bike races are a little bit different. And it's really good that we've got that expertise able to stay within the peloton in a different form.
You mentioned Giorgia Bronzini, and she'll be vital. She's been a two-time road race world champion in the past. She was an excellent sprinter during her career. She won her final ever race in the La Vuelta by Madrid a couple of years ago, which was a brilliant send-off for the Italian rider. She won that from actually the breakaway. The peloton were just about to catch her, and in the end won the sprint. But for her, she's going to be crucial today for Linda Zanatti, because surely that'll be the rider that they'll be trying to protect today within that Human Powered Health squad. The Swiss rider Alice Wood, who is local to this area, she'll be able to feed back a lot of information in terms of the roads. But the knowledge from Giorgia Bronzini as a sprinter to give to Zanatti is going to be pivotal.
Yeah, it really is. She's a rider that is used to dealing with that pressure, used to often being the team leader when it comes to bunch sprints. Very, very, capable rider herself, but master tactician as well. So again, having that experience in the car as the DS, hugely important. You mentioned Alice Wood, formerly Alice Barnes, of course, does live locally. Like I say, a lot of the British riders, pretty much anybody that's come through the British cycling, sort of any of the development squads will have lived in this part of the world at some point. So she'll be really strong for the local knowledge of the area. But yeah, for Human Powered Health, they're the team that, not currently got anybody up there on GC, that they need to do something at this race. Only starting with 5 riders, not 6, unfortunately having some illness coming into it and not being able to start with a full team. But this is a big chance for them to do something and get their name out there at this race.
I spoke to Alice Wood just before the race, asking if what she knew about the course and had she done a recon, and she said she hadn't done the full recon of the course because she basically knew each and every twist, turn, left, right, every road, because it's all her training roads. And she hadn't taken a look at the finish inside normal hours, public hours, because it's very different doing a run into a finish when there's traffic and you don't have the free lines to be able to take. But of course, her knowledge of all the other roads between there from here on in, and as we head towards Bollington, Pot Shrigley, Macclesfield and back through towards Wilmslow, is going to be vital, just of guiding where to be in terms of positioning also when you know it's going to narrow on the road.
Yeah, positioning absolutely key. We always talk about this in bike racing, but especially on a day like today with not much climbing, windy conditions out there, narrow roads, just knowing when the road narrows. It's one thing having your DS in your ear telling you, like, oh, in 5K that the road is going to go from 2 lanes to 1 lane. It's so much more meaningful when you've ridden those roads yourself and you haven't even really got to think about exactly how many K to go. You just sort of know that round that next bend over that next hill, that's where I need to be in the right place. So we can't underestimate quite how crucial that local knowledge is going to be. In terms of saving energy, and like you mentioned, seeing the actual finish, very difficult to recce when you've got a big sort of town centre or city centre finish. Completely different on the day when it's the bike race with closed roads compared to what it's like on a normal day. But having all that knowledge for these sort of roads, really, really crucial. So looking forward to seeing who are going to be the ones that might just get caught out on some of these, like we say, 2 categorised climbs, but quite a bit of climbing in general around Macclesfield. They've been given 3rd category. I don't know if I would have given them myself that category if I were doing it, knowing the climbs and when I was training around there. They're not easy at all.
They're not easy, and it seems as though, and Danny Rowe and I were talking about this over the first 2 stages as Lucy Lee heads into Siddington, about how hard the British roads are. They have a very different feel to roads on the continent, perhaps due to the tarmac. They always feel very sticky, very grippy, almost like you're riding through treacle sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's hard to explain to people that have perhaps only ridden in the UK, so British people that are cyclists here, riding out on these sort of roads day in, day out. Get yourself out to Mallorca for a few training rides, then you will see exactly what we mean. That will be bliss. Your average people go up by 5K an hour. You'll get exactly what we're talking about. And conversely, the opposite is the case for anybody that's based out in mainland Europe coming to the UK. Yeah, the roads are heavier. It is a hard thing to explain if you're not a cyclist, but yeah, they just don't roll quite as well. The sort of tarmac that's used. There's lots of, you can see on this bit of road here, it's not, you'd call this a flat road, but it's not flat. It's little dips up and down, always, no real time to relax. Even when you're on the wheel, you're still putting the power down. And it is different to some of those sort of roads that you've got abroad, and it's different to a lot of the roads that the pro peloton will be more used to racing on, and it is more tiring. And it's always really interesting for me, the British riders that are based abroad, spend a lot of time racing abroad as well as training abroad. When they come back to their UK, they're like, I know what to expect. And I think Lizzie Deignan once, not at this race, but a few years previously, said something like, sometimes riders can almost think they've got a slow puncher because it just does feel that little bit heavier. And it's so great to have bike racing here in the UK, and it is just a different feeling the way the roads roll compared to some of those fast roads abroad.
They certainly do. They certainly do. But nevertheless, we wouldn't change it in the slightest. It's also the high hedgerows that is a big difference. You can see the nature of the roads, the country roads, as the peloton are just approaching and coming towards Siddington Crossroads. The gap, 1 minute and 7 seconds to our lone chaser, Lucy Lee, to this leading duo. Madeline Leach on the front in that lime green and purple jersey of Life Plus Wahoo. Joe Tindley in the red jersey of Pro Noctis, 200 Degrees Coffee, Hargreaves Contracting. And behind, there's a change, but it's only between Elena Cecchini and Christine Majeras, who are doing the workload, just trying to keep control. We have confirmation of that time gap. 1 minute and 16 to Lucy Lee, 4 minutes to the Peloton. It's been a strong performance from Tindley and Leech. It was Tindley who set this race alight earlier on, and she was the rider who started the breakaways. Plenty of riders tried to bridge across, but weren't successful. We passed through Lower Withington and we're heading into the first Queen of the Mountain of the day. This is the Category 3 Pex Hill. Joe Tindley has gone through the base of that. There's support at the roadside for Little Trek and Lizzie Dignan there.
Yeah, glad to see someone's made the effort to get a sign out there. Really helpful to know exactly who they're supporting. Did see a Little Trek jersey there. Little Trek not taking part in this race, but that is Lizzie Dignan's trade team. So someone's got a cheeky gilet or jersey there that they're wearing. And yeah, this is the start of the first Queen of the Mountains climb, Category 3 Pex Hill. It is one of those ones, like I say, it's a little bit harder than what it looks. It'll be interesting to see how the time gap changes, though, from these two riders that are away and the Peloton, because naturally in the Peloton, knowing that you've got a categorised climb coming up, whether it be third category or first category, whatever it is, every single DS is going to be saying to your riders, make sure you're at the front, make sure you're not the wrong side of the split. I think they will naturally speed up. Despite the fact they're going uphill, naturally there will be an increase in speed in the peloton. And you can already see the teams that are getting organised behind SD Works. I can see Human Powered Health here coming up towards the front that we've spoken about quite a lot. The GB team are up there. Liverlula Jaco are up there as well. So this is one of those key parts in the race where, although this isn't going to be a real race decider, you've got to be in the right place.
The Peloton take on Siddington Crossroads and they make their way towards the base of that Category 3 climb at Pex Hill. The climb itself, 2 kilometres long, an average gradient of 2.7%. Ethan Vernon is the Strava record holder. He holds the fastest time, and of course popular training roads around here for him too. It's quite a steady climb. There isn't any major steep parts of the climb. It's quite steady, it's quite even in terms of the gradient.
Yeah, and that's why I think the pace is going to start ramping up, because no matter how hard or not hard it is, you know there's the potential for someone to perhaps want to spring an attack, or people that are suffering could lose the wheel. So everyone's going to want to make sure they're in the right place. And you can see the speed here. Christine Majeras, the Luxembourg national champion, on the front at the moment. And you can get an idea of the speed of the peloton here now. The first few riders are all strung out behind her. And you can see a couple of riders just sort of struggling towards the back. But this is going to be key for the breakaway here. Does that time gap change much on this section, or are they able to maintain it? Because it was 4 minutes when we last got that time check, which is a brilliant, huge gap for them. But this is the hilly part of the race that we're coming into now.
But when you see that we'll crest the top of Pex Hill with 64.6 kilometres to go, and the time gap is 4 minutes, and the breakaway have been working well together, there's no other team that is going to give Team SD Works Pro Time any help in terms of this chase. So have they started to realise now, wow, this is actually more dangerous than we might have first anticipated? And knowing that the roads get harder as we head towards Broken Cross and Macclesfield, heading towards Titherington, that they know they need to start to eat into that advantage.
Yeah, they do. Although what I would say is, looking at the latest weather forecast that we have seen, it looks like it's going to be a headwind towards the finish, and we know that that will play into the hands of the peloton with more riders. So I probably wouldn't be panicking at this stage. And this, what you've just said, Hannah, is actually really interesting to show the experience and I guess the maturity of a team like SD Works, who will sort of be doing this all the time. Time checks on the screen there, interesting, just under 4 minutes, but very similar compared to some of the smaller teams that might be panicking and thinking, oh no, we missed out on this break, we need to do something now. So really key for other teams, I think, in this situation, not to panic and not try and do too much here, and leave it in the hands of the team that have got that overall race leader's jersey.
Lucy Lee shown the time board, 1 minute and 20 seconds. This is a brave effort from Lucy Lee. because we saw she made a brave move. She pulled it off into Llandudno on stage 1 when she attacked with 10 kilometres to go. She held off the peloton behind. She took her first ever top 10 finish in a UCI Women's World Tour race. And she's been chasing for a long, long time, but she's neither closer to the leading duo, but she's certainly a good way ahead of the peloton here.
Yeah, she is in a really, really awkward no man's land. I'm not envious of her position at all, and fair play to her for pushing on in this situation, because she has got a long way to go to catch these two, Jo Tindley and Maddie Leach, who are running really, really well. 1 minute and 19 seconds is the latest gap. But also, she's even further ahead of the peloton, so she does not want to sit up at the moment. You know, she's got a good gap over that peloton who are working hard now with SD Works on the front. But yeah, really tough situation to be in. Strong enough to hold of the peloton, not quite able to close this gap on her own. And she knows that these two can't afford to sit up and wait for her. The gap's too significant that they don't want to lose that time. So tough times out there at the moment. She's just getting her head down and carrying on riding, and hoping that she might make some more inroads into this gap.
This is a category 3 climb, so only the first 4 riders will take the points. Jo Tindley and Maddie Leach went through the top of that. They took the 4 points and the 3 points. This is Lucy Lee. She picks up the 2 points. There's still 1 point on offer behind. And let's not forget, it's Great Britain national team Lizzie Dignan who is leading that Queen of the Mountains competition. She's got that distinctive blue jersey on her shoulders, and she's got a good buffer over Lotte Kopecky at the moment. She's got 10 points to Kopecky and Anna Henderson. They're both sitting on 14 points. Dignan on 24. If she can just try and add 1 point to her tally, and you can see now right on cue Eleanor Barker on the front with that yellow helmet on, Eleanor Backstead with the red helmet on, and there is Lizzie Dignan in that blue jersey, and she's got Millie Cousins just on the wheel to almost act as a sweeper, a barrier to anybody else.
Textbook display here, Hannah, just as you've mentioned it. Once again, I think they're listening to us. They're doing exactly what you said there. So work on the front here, like you say, from Eleanor Barker and Eleanor Backstead. Lizzie Dignan is the rider in the blue, and clearly she wants to just make sure, no one can take that jersey off her today, but if she can get that one last point that's available, she consolidates that lead even more, makes it that little bit safer going into the final day of racing. And of course, she mentioned before the start of this race, she wants to come away with a result. It might not be for the overall now, but taking the Queen of the Mountains jersey at any World Tour stage race is always a really significant result.
It wasn't one of the big targets that they'd come in. It was just the pure racing instinct from Lizzie Dignan. As she starts to take a look over her left-hand shoulder, she's just anticipating any potential attack from any other rider. Nobody is wanting to try and go for those points. Dignan crests the top of Peck's Hill. She takes the 1 remaining point in the Queen of the Mountains competition, atop of that Category 3 climb. She puts a lead at 25 points, 11 points more than Lotte Kopecky and her Great Britain national teammate, Anna Henderson. Well, it was job well done. It also sets things up nicely that a national team don't often get to race together, and this is the first time since 2016, of course, in the old previous editions of what was the Women's Tour. Now we're into the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women in its first edition. It's the first time to see a Great Britain national team represented.
And what's interesting about that is when you race the World Championships once a year, when you race the Olympic Games once every 4 years, what would be 3 years this time, you race for your national team. Suddenly you've got different kit, you've got a different DS, and things are different, and you're so used to being with your trade team teammates. Suddenly they become rivals at those major championships. So having an opportunity to race as a national team at this level, could some of these beat riders be part of the Olympic squad? Of course, Team GB haven't selected their cyclist squads. They haven't announced the teams for the road and for the track events. We'll wait to see those announcements come in the coming weeks, I hope. But really good opportunity for anyone that's got ambitions at the Olympic Games. And of course, we have World Championships every year. To race as part of a national squad doesn't happen very often, like you say, but it means you get used to having that DS, you get used to those teammates. Could really pay dividends later on in the season.
And particularly with a young squad, a mix of experienced young riders, and now we have another move, and this is one of our riders from the Albert Development Road team who has decided that over the top of Peck's Hill as we head towards Broken Cross, that They feel that they've got an opportunity to take advantage of what's going on and the control that is in the peloton currently to try and bridge across.
Yeah, probably worth saying that over the top of that Queen of the Mountains climb, the road descends a little bit, then it continues to climb again. Some sort of shallow gradients, but some sort of false flats. There's no real big descent to come, but then of course we've got another Queen of the Mountains coming up.
Well, here's confirmation of Paxhill, the Category 3 Queen of the Mountain. Madeline Leach takes the 4 points ahead of Jo Tindley. It's Lucy Lee who picks up the 2 points, and confirmation that Dignan does pick up the 1, taking her tally to 25 points in that blue Queen of the Mountains jersey. So it's job well done for the GB national team. Anna Shackley on the radio to her team is saying, well, this could be a good opportunity to use this part of the course where we've gone over the top of this Queen of the Mountain. We've gone over the top of the Queen of the Mountain and it still continues to climb.
Yeah, very tough roads here. We will have a bit of a descent as we sort of go into Prestbury before we climb our next Queen of the Mountain climb. But that is coming up relatively soon, so these two categorised climbs coming very, very close together. Then we'll have a long descent off that second climb before we've got the very fast roads that are running in towards the finish. But this is the tough bit of the course, the bit that we've been talking about, how tougher than what it looks on paper, tougher than what the sort of the route shows. And this is a good opportunity if you do want to try and attack. Still lots of twisting roads, still some relatively narrow roads, still some opportunity to be able to use those gradients to try and get a gap over the bunch. So we'll hopefully see a few riders trying to do that, because later on it's going to be far trickier.
And of course, generally, ordinarily during a normal weekend or a normal week, these are very busy roads too, so you can see there's plenty of road furniture that plays into the hands of the breakaway riders and those who can pick the lines. As you see, SD Works Pro Time just guide through the pedestrian islands there, heading towards Broken Cross. We'll dip round the left-hand side, the west of Macclesfield, the Silk Town. We've been through Lower Withington, which was the former home of the double Olympic medalist and 4-time world champion Reg Harris. He always trained in these roads that surrounded in Cheshire and around Lower Withington. And of course, if you've ever been to the Manchester Velodrome, which has hosted World Championships and Commonwealth Games, you'll see the big statue at the top of the banking of one of the corners. That is the statue of Reg Harris himself. Well, this is what happened at the Queen of the Mountain on Paxhill. There was no real challenge between Maddie Leach and Jo Tindley. They don't feature in terms of trying to take that jersey off the shoulders of Lizzie Dignan. So is their main focus on just keeping the cohesion?
Yeah, main focus for them, keeping working well together. And if one of them were to attack the other to get the points, that would be really poor form, really. And that is not going to help you if you want to work together for the rest of the stage. So very much just riding over the line there, as we'd expect. You know, both of these girls, experienced professionals, know what they're doing. It's not worth scrapping it out for the points when they're not contenders for that overall result for the Queen of the Mountains, and instead ride over it and then continue working well together.
Emma Caitlin Dimbleby is the rider who's trying to chase across to Lucy Lee, taking her opportunity, heading towards Broken Cross. We've seen plenty of riders try and take an opportunity in today's stage. They've bookmarked today's stage, being one perhaps for the sprinters, that they know that they can try and upset the rhythm, upset the dynamic, as now we start to see a little bit more organisation from other teams. You can start to see Team DSM Firmenich Post&L start to get their lead out train, just because they know it is quite tricky, it is quite complicated. Human Powered Health also there with Alice Barnes, Alice Wood, who's on the front as they head towards Prestbury. I still have to get used to calling Alice Wood by her married name, having known her for so many years. But they know this is complicated, they know it's technical here, and this is the first time that we've seen any of our other teams start to come to the fore.
Yep, so our next climb coming up is another third category climb, but like you say, technical roads. But before we start the climb, the roads are going up and down. It's not like we've got a nice flat section and a nice flat run into it. So you do need to be getting yourself organised early. And like you say, 2 of our other big teams, 2 out of our 3 World Tour teams were on the front there with their respective trains, with their respective team leaders behind them. So good to see that they are getting organised early on. Our race leaders here going through this section. Once again, you can just see the roads here. This is not what you want to see when your legs are hurting, just the road just going up again. Of course, not categorised climbs here at all, but sort of sapping the legs of energy at this stage of the race.
One of our uncategorised climbs as Lucy Lee makes her way through the beautiful village of Prestbury, and village initially settled by priests, hence taking its name from priest borough or dwelling. It's now very, very popular and famous for footballers, with a number of big football clubs in the area, including Manchester United and Manchester City, all living very close and in and around this village. You've got that little cobble section, and you've also got plenty of sleeping policemen too to contend with. Traffic calming measures ordinarily, but sometimes, as we see here, Madeline Leach has got a problem with the chain. It's jammed. And this is not good news for the British rider here, because they've had a bit of a turbulent 48 hours really in terms of having all of their bikes stolen from the van overnight at the team's hotel. You can just hear something's not quite right there mechanically.
Yeah, so our camera's just focusing in here, trying to see what the problem is, but you can tell that it's not flowing. She's not happy at the moment. Joe Tindley, the rider in the red, just coming behind her, just trying to see what the problem is. See if we can hear what they say to each other.
The front mech has wrote Joe Tindley saying she's still able to change on with the rear derailleur and on the cassette there, but you can hear, and particularly the atmosphere noise that I can hear in my headset here. This is a big problem for Madeline Leach, because we haven't seen the team cars come behind this duo here. They've been protecting their riders who are still in the peloton.
Yeah, so not an opportunity to change bikes at the moment, like you say. Really nice, the camaraderie between these 2 riders, and seeing, Joe tell Maddie what the problem was. Joe, the older, more experienced rider, Maddie Leach, still very, very young, though super talented. And you can see she's still looking down, still trying to fiddle around with that front mech, still trying to get it working properly. We do have another categorised climb coming up, as we keep saying, is tougher than what it looks on paper. So we'll really need to be able to use those gears for that. So agonising moments here for the young British rider.
Agonising moments, and you can see already the road starts to climb as we're leaving Prestbury heading towards Bollington. Here is the neutral service car, which is supported by Madison. They've got some spares. And as you can see from the roof, they've got spare wheels. There's no spare bike on the roof rack to try and help and assist Maddie Leach here. Yeah. And this is a hard decision for Joe Tindley of what to do.
Yeah, really tough for Joe Tindley here, because, she wants to maintain this gap. Maddie Leach here just having a little word with the people at the side of the road as well, just saying she's got a problem with that front mech. Hopefully there'll be a mechanic in this neutral service car, so although they haven't got any bikes on the roof, as we can see, they've just got wheels, hopefully she'll be able to have a conversation with somebody. Of course, it's not her mechanic for her team. Still looking back, still looking for some assistance. Joe Tindley pushing on, because that's all she can really do at the moment. She's not trying to get rid of Maddie Leach by any means at all, but they can't just completely let the gap go. Still, Maddie Leach is looking around. And let's see what cars we've got here.
We've got one of our commissaire cars, and now Maddie Leach puts her arm up. She'll want to try and get the team car, her team car of Life Plus Wahoo, to try and overtake the peloton here and get to Maddie Leach as quickly as possible so she can have a bike change.
Yeah, that's exactly what she'll be trying to ask from the commissaires now. So currently no team car behind her, as you said. We're just approaching the start of the next Queen of the Mountains climb as well. And as we keep saying, narrow roads here will be difficult for some of the team cars to pass the peloton in this situation. Of course, very much doable, and these DSs will be experienced in driving in the race convoy and coming past the peloton. But still, could be slightly tricky. Any delay is not helping these 2 riders in their breakaway efforts now.
Any delay, the last time check that we had was 3 minutes and 55 seconds. It's still Lucy Lee who is our first chaser on the road. We also saw there was a move from Emma Caitlin Dimbleby of the Alba Development Road team, who was trying to pursue a chase to Lucy Lee. Here is Emma Caitlin Dimbleby. This is our second chaser, and she only has a handful of seconds over that peloton. She's not being allowed completely off the leash by the peloton and SD Works, and primarily due to the fact that it has been technical. The roads have been undulating, they've been harsh roads, and lots of teams and riders knowing that they need to be right up towards the front. There's a moment here as they're going through Bollington that Maddie Leach can use this part of the road just to use the slipstream of Jo Tindley.
Yeah, so she's just behind Jo Tindley at the moment. So Jo Tindley's still pushing on because she really has to in this situation. They're going to have a little conversation here, it looks like. So I was really glad to see that Jo Tindley was trying to assist Maddie Leach as much as she could. So really difficult sort of decision-making moments here for these two riders. But the road is going to go upwards now, so we'll see exactly how well Maddie Leach's gears are working, because that could be very tricky for this climb coming up. Still good to see lots of support out here for these riders, but tricky decision-making moments for Maddie Leach and, of course, for Jo Tindley, who's not got any technical problems right now, but the gap there is showing under 3 minutes.
Well, due to the impetus at the head of the peloton and the mechanical problem for the 21-year-old British rider of Life Plus Wahoo has meant that they've lost 1 minute of their advantage to the peloton behind. They're heading towards the second and final categorised climb of the day. That's on Shrigley Road, 2.9 kilometre climb at an average gradient of 2.6%. They'll reach that point with 54 kilometres to go. Again, quite like Peck's Hill that we saw earlier on, 4, 3, 2 and 1 points available. If you're just joining us, welcome to stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. This is stage 3, starting and finishing in Warrington. We've had one Queen of the Mountain already, that was Peck's Hill. We're on to the base of the second Queen of the Mountain of the day, that's Shrigley Hall. Jo Tindley was the rider who started all of the attacks and animating the race. It was Maddie Leach who bridged across. And in the last couple of kilometres, it's the 21-year-old rider who has had a mechanical problem with her front mech. Now we're climbing, she can't change into the inner ring. She can change on with the rear derailleur, but the front derailleur is broken, and this is a bad timing for this rider as they head onto Shrigley Road.
Yeah, very, very bad timing indeed. And you can see she's still looking around, still trying to see if anybody is able to come and help her, either her team car with a mechanic in or anybody with any sort of assistance. Jo Tindley being forced to push on here because she's got to, and you can see there's a slight dip in the road there. And very, very difficult moments for Jo Tindley to know what to do because they have worked so, so well together. But Maddie Leach is a very talented young rider. She's got a huge amount of power. She's a reigning national time trial champion for under 23. She's going to be able to push on as much as she can on this climb.
She's still not able to get any assistance from her team car, and you can just see from the difference in cadence between Madeline Leach and Jo Tindley, the difference here just passing by on Shrigley Hall, as now she perhaps has fixed the problem.
Looks like she's in the small ring there, so we can now see her turning the pedals faster. She was in a very big gear earlier. Still doesn't seem to be very happy with quite how the bike's working, quite how the gears are working, because you can see here the cadence is now almost too fast. So she's still not having things work perfectly for her.
Our chaser at 1 minute and 34 seconds passes by and up the climb in Bollington, leaving this village that's right on the edge of the Peak District National Park. It's been a brave effort from Lucy Lee, and she hasn't resisted the fact that she's not been able to get to these two leaders here. She's been persistent. It's a brave move. She was stuck between a rock and a hard place, really, because she had a good advantage over the peloton, but could never quite get the leading duo in her sights. Emma Caitlin Dimbleby is our second chaser on the day. She's just started the Queen of the Mountain on Shrigley Road.
Stay out front for this. She'll probably keep it forward in a minute.
Emma Caitlin Dimbleby, she's looking strong, Joe. As she comes past, there's lots of support along this climb too. And when we passed with Joe Tindley and Madeline Leach, we saw lots of support, lots of different flags. The international peloton will be happy.
Yeah, they certainly will. So a lot of riders often report how impressed they are with the crowds out in the UK. And you can see people coming out here in the front garden, supporting all the riders, very, very young children as well, which is always lovely to see because we know how important having sport visible is for inspiring the next generation. We're just back with Maddie Leach here now. At least she's back with Joe Tinney. So our two leaders are together as things stand. We'll see how she's getting on with her gears, but really brilliant effort for her to carry on with this really tricky technical problem.
You can see as the peloton make their way onto the bottom of the Queen of the Mountain 2. This climb, you're quite sheltered, and it's a steady climb. I know from when I used to ride on these roads very regularly, and you're quite the same, Joe, as well, when you were living in Manchester. It's quite a steady climb once you get over this part out of Bollington. The steady climb up past the entrance into the brickworks, which you can just see up ahead on the right-hand side. They'll bear to the left-hand side. Instead of taking that right-hand turn up the brickworks, they'll head past Shrigley Hall and then start to drop down to Adlington. But you can see it's protected, it's sheltered.
Yeah, very, very well-known climbs here. For a lot of riders who will be used to training in the area, a lot of us will know to go up that climb there. We climb even higher up the climb that you just mentioned called Brickworks, but the riders bearing round to the left here. And we did just see the blackboard go past. It looked like the gap was under 3 minutes to our leaders as we go through Pot Shrigley.
Into Pot Shrigley, the gap is 2:10, and the two leaders have 500 metres to go until the top of this Queen of the Mountain. 4, 3, 2 and 1 seconds available. And we've already got one child who's inspired to take up bike racing. He's giving them a good run for his money.
Yeah, giving that a good go. Try and keep with the pros as long as you can. And they're decked out with the flag as well. Really, really brilliant to see.
That's what we like to
support.
see, isn't it?
Yeah, we really do.
It's important having these kind of events, whether it inspires the next generation to take up competition and racing, or whether it just gets them interested in sport, leading a healthier lifestyle. Emma Kate Dimbleby is still in pursuit of Lucy Lee as she climbs all the way up Shrigley Road. Starting to see visibly now that after a long time, Lucy Lee, start to see that fatigue visible in her body language here. She's already looking behind. She's wanting and needing some assistance here.
Yeah, we've already spoken about how she really has been in no man's land, between a rock and a hard place for an awful lot of this stage. And real credit to her for carrying on in that situation. Would have been easy to have sat up and say, okay, I've not made it across the leaders, let's just give up. But she has ploughed on in tough conditions out there today on these tough roads. Still, she is going solo at the moment, still not in touching distance of our leads. We saw them go through here more than a minute ago, but just coming up to that 500 metre to go sign for the top of the Queen of the Mountains will be a welcome sign, because then we do have a fast descent and a flatter run into the finish after this. But it is going to be a headwind, that's worth pointing out.
The peloton make the left-hand turn. Brickworks is on the right, one of the famous climbs in this region. Unlike last time on Pax Hill, with the situation we've got on the road here, there will be no points available for the riders there in the peloton as they make their way down this fast descent, that sweeping left-hand turn. And Maddie Leach, sadly for her, the rider from Life Plus Wahoo, is having all sorts of troubles once again with her gears, and that has meant that Joe Tindley, who's an excellent descender, with all that experience she's had from over the years, she's left her behind at this point, and Madeline Leach is having so many troubles and difficulties.
Yeah, the thing for Maddie Leach now, it's, you know, we struggle to get in the right gear for the climb. Now even more of a struggle to get in the right gear for the descent, which means she just won't be able to pedal at the same speed as Joe Tindley and keep up with her. So very, very tricky again. But as you said, she is a young rider, just 21 years old. And moments like this are the ones that, you know, in years to come in her career, she'll have, you know, far more setbacks, far more mechanical issues. These things do happen, but she'll have this experience to bank on. You know, you can always look back and say, right, I got through that day. I can get through this day. And this is where experience really pays off in bike racing. She is young and she is out there learning, and she's still trying to keep Jo Tindley in sight. I don't envy this position whatsoever, because of course Jo is a superstar descender any day of the week, but then if you've not got the gears to be able to keep up with her, it's making it even trickier.
Absolutely, it's tricky, and you could see there that Maddie Leach is trying to use her race radio as the peloton go over the top of that Queen of the Mountain. It looks as though Emma-Kate Dimbleby just took that 1 point that remained in that classification. But she has a slender advantage, and still Lucy Lee, who is persisting. She takes on this fast left hand. It's almost off camera. I always remember this road from riding and training here. It was always one of those corners that ordinarily, when the roads are open and you've got cars, you had to shade off so much speed. And here Madeline Leach is having a disastrous day. What started off so positively, she made it into the breakaway. She followed Jo Tindley. Now she's having big problems with her front derailleur, and you can see as well, Jo, that the chain is loose. It's off. She needs a straight bike change here.
Yeah, she does. You can see she's been trying to get that chain back on. You know, you can try and use the gear levers. You can try and do things when you're riding, but she's just not able to do it at all. Calling up the neutral service here. The commissaire's car is right here, but nobody able to give her any assistance. Absolutely heartbreaking moments here for Maddie Leach.
Well, the team car finally arrives after a call-up and a frantic drive from Jasinska. The team cars arrive with a new bike for Madeline Leach, and she's not onto her normal team bike because, of course, of the adversity that happened overnight between stages 1 and 2, where they had all of their team bikes stolen. She's onto a new bike, which is actually a bike from SD Works Pro Time, a specialised bike. So for her, it's a new bike, a new setup, new equipment, a new frame and a new feel. But the main thing is, Jo, she has a new bike and she can be on with her way.
Yeah, that is the main thing indeed. It's taken an awfully long time to be able to get the car up there and get that bike to her. Really glad to see she's able to carry on racing. Just passing through Adlington here now. Very fast section of the course coming up in terms of the road, but we are now into a headwind section. The big question is she able to close the gap to Jo Tindley? Because really difficult situation for Jo Tindley from Pro Noctis 200 degrees coffee. She can't sit up and just wait in this situation.
Well, our two chasers have joined up together. Lucy Lee and Emma-Kate Dimbleby have become a force. The question is, what is their advantage over the peloton behind as Maddie Leach crosses Adlington Crossroads, heading towards Adlington Hall here? How will she be feeling here? Because you can see from the body language, she looks disheartened. Yeah,
she does. It's really hard to know exactly how she'll be feeling in this situation, but like you say, from the body language here, it looks like she's not chasing full gas. You know, we know how strong she is. We know that she was really strong in that breakaway with Jo Tindley, but at the moment it looks like she's just not quite fully committing to this at the moment. Her team car is still there, so perhaps she's waiting to have a conversation with the DS to work out exactly what is best to do. We're not sure quite how far back these two riders here now. Our two other chasers have now joined up. Maddie Leach taking the opportunity, like I say, to have a conversation with the team car and take a feed while she can.
It's been a long day out in the breakaway for Madeline Leach and Jo Tindley, and a good opportunity, as you say, Jo, to take on some fluids, take on some food, just replace all of the energy that she's lost by being out in that breakaway. Take that opportunity. And here we see, this is Emma-Kate Dimbleby and Lucy Lee, who have joined forces. They've joined together. Lucy Lee takes a little look behind, and they'll become a team now. You can just see that little bit of communication, but just taking a look at where the peloton are there crossing Adlington Crossroads. They're not too far behind this chasing duo.
No, they're not too far at all, so at least these two can work together now. Even more important as we come into the headwind part of this course. We had a really fast average speed so far today because we have had that tailwind. You can see the wind now in the trees behind. It is still a very windy day out there. SD Works still in control of the peloton, but absolutely worth still committing for any riders that are away to try and maintain that gap, because it's not over till it's over. You never know what can happen behind, but very glad they are able to work together now.
Yeah. In terms of the average speed that you just mentioned there, we're looking at around 39.7 kilometers per hour. So they're right on the cusp between the medium and the fastest schedule of the day.
Yeah, which is even more impressive given that we've had a breakaway get so much of a gap, and just 2 riders that were part of that main breakaway of the day. And once the peloton really start working here, I'm expecting some very fast speeds in the run into the finish. Like I was saying earlier, that the bigger a gap a breakaway gets, the harder you know it's going to get in the peloton behind, because once a big team gets on the front, they will have to work really hard to bring those time gaps down.
All throughout the course, support for these riders as they pass by. 40 seconds is their advantage. So if they can, now they have an opportunity to work together, they can have that cohesion, they can start to build on this lead. The peloton behind will of course be aware that they're away as they head towards Mottram St Andrew. Just hearing 2 minutes and 5 seconds for our leading duo. For Jo Tindley, it's not an easy position to be in either. She knows that they've had that good communication, that good cohesion between her and Maddie Leach. It's not an easy point to be in a race where you've worked well together. It's been a team effort to create such a gap, and you don't want to let your new teammate for a temporary moment down.
Yeah, really, really tricky. And like I say, a contrast of sort of youth and experience in that breakaway. Jo Tindley, one of the elder riders in this race at 37 years old. Maddie Leach, only 21 years old. It will be a huge gain in experience of Maddie Leach. But yeah, of course, you're on different teams. And when you're out in a breakaway, just the two of you, you are teammates essentially. You're working together until you get to that race finish when suddenly you're rivals again. And they were working really, really well together. We'll wait to see if Maddie Leach is able to come back up to Jo Tindley. We have still had, like you say, that time gap was showing still a very good sort of over 2 minutes for our race leaders back to our peloton, so very much worth pushing on. We're just not sure whether that is Jo Tindley by herself at the moment, or if Maddie Leach is able to get up to her.
We've seen so many crowds out in force, in villages, in towns, and of course inspiring the next generation. We talk about that inspiration aspect of these kind of events, and this is the highest level of professional cycling in women's racing in a UCI Women's World Tour race. This is the pinnacle of professional road racing. For many, this could be what inspires them to take up the sport, and their entrance into the sport, having seen this race take part on their home roads.
Yeah, it's really, really crucial. We know that in general, girls are far more likely than boys to drop out of sport in their teenage years. You know, a vast difference between girls and boys in those crucial years in terms of, you know, a lot of children are sporty at primary school, but once you go to secondary school, things do change, and it can be harder for girls to stay in sport, whatever that sport is. But when girls are asked what they'd like to see, the top change they want to see is equal coverage of men's and women's sport in the media. And the fact that we've got the best riders in the world here, the world champion Lotte Kopecky is here, Olympic medalist Lizzie Deignan is here, you know, some real sort of household names in terms of cycling are racing on these roads in the UK. We've been able to make this race happen, and we've seen so many crowds out cheering, but so many families, and I think that's what's really been interesting to see, that a lot of it has been children, young children, boys and girls, and of course it's really good, really important across the board to have visibility of sport, visibility of cycling, and whether that inspires somebody to try cycling as a sport or whether it inspires them to ride their bike to school. You know, it's all good. It's all getting people on bikes.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And for a lot of these riders, they will have perhaps been through a very similar scenario where they've seen racing in their local town or village, or perhaps seen it at the Olympic Games. I remember one of the famous ones, and a rider you and I know in Emily Kay, a rider who's retired from professional sport now, but she was inspired to take up the sport due to Paola Pezzo, the mountain biker back in an Olympic Games. So seeing these races holds so much value.
Yeah, especially sports that aren't the traditional sort of PE sports. You know, everybody tries all those sort of traditional sports at school. A lot of people don't think about professional cycling as something that might be accessible to them until you see
Or
the
not
professional
even know it's
peloton.
a sport to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, obviously Olympic year is huge for, you know, so many sports getting that stage and that platform to showcase to the world. But it's really important to sort of maintain that momentum and have other events that are visible as well, particularly for women's sport. We know that across the board, women's sport does not get as much media coverage as men's. And I love that British Cycling have, you know, made the effort with Lloyds Bank to make both the women's and the men's Tour of Britain's happen this year, when they had far more time to prepare the men's one, because that's going to be coming up in September. They were far tighter for time for the women's one, but it is so crucial for people of all ages. You know, it's not just about inspiring the children, it's also about you know, anybody at any stage of their life being able to keep fit and healthy, even if you're not going to take part in the sport competitively. But also, it's never too late. You know, cycling is a sport where we have champions that are very young, and we're also having some of our eldest champions. I mean, Annemiek van Vleuten retired last year, but she was over the age of 40. So never too late to give it a go.
And it seemed as though while she was an excellent professional throughout her career, it was really in those years as she started to get into her 30s, her mid-30s, her late 30s, where she really tasted all of that success. So, like you say, Joe, it is never too late to either pick up the sport, pick up a new sport, start racing, even if you haven't been doing it since you were a youth or into the junior ranks.
Yeah, well, you know, we just spoke about Jo Tindley earlier. We were speaking about her a lot today. She's 37 years old, one of the elder riders in the peloton here. Lizzie Deignan is 35, and, you know, we know she's had a really long and successful career. And it's really good to see that you have got that spread in women's professional cycling. It's not a sport where everybody peaks at a young age then retires, or it's not a sport where everybody peaks at a really later age. We do have a real sort of spread of ages in the peloton, and hopefully that will be useful for everybody watching to know that.
And I know you've followed Jo Tindley's career also since a very early age, because you both used to race for the same club down south in London. I know you were together on the talent team at the same point too. So you've come through the ranks in the sport, and then at one point Jo Tindley, she went her own way, she stopped racing, she completely left the sport behind and only regained the love for it back in her, I think she was around 26 or 27 when she refound that passion for the sport. And look at her now, 10 years on.
Yeah. So Jo Tindley's been a multiple national champion. She's ridden on the track and the road, circuit racing, and, like you say, been around for many, many years. And we were teammates for the team, the club team VCL, based in South London, back when I was a junior. So I show my age a little bit there. But yeah, she has been around for a long time, and she's really key to this team. Pro Noctis, 200 Degrees, Coffee, Hargreaves Contracting. They are a team that are a continental British team. They had the aim of being able to compete in the Tour of Britain Women this year, and they've made it here. And of course, that's not without its challenges. They've still got a lot of volunteers working for the team, a lot of sort of partners and parents that are here helping out. You know, haven't got the backup of full-time staff that a lot of teams have got. But having a rider like Jo as part of that team, the experience that she brings, and that sort of natural sort of captain position, even though their slogan is more than a team and it's very much team first and foremost, and no one is bigger than the team, having that experience and being able to sort of take younger riders under her wing will be really crucial.
She's a natural leader as well, and that comes with all of that experience, the way that she's able to guide some of the younger riders. She's done a brilliant job with Lucy Gadd, Lucy Elmore, who are two riders on the team. Lucy Elmore not racing here, but you've seen the progression, particularly that she had last year, as we see the results of Shrigley Road on the Category 3 Queen of the Mountain, the second of the day. Tindley and Leech taking the 4 points ahead of Jo Tindley with the 3. Lucy Lee hung on for the 2 points, and Emma Caitlin Dimbleby of Alba Development Road Team taking the 1 point. That does no damage to the lead of Lizzie Deignan, who continues to lead that blue Queen of the Mountains jersey. She'll go into stage 4, the final stage of this Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, leading that classification, barring any problems. And as long as she finishes today's stage, she will go into tomorrow's stage from Manchester Villa Park to Lee, wearing that jersey on her shoulders. If you're just joining us, welcome along. This is stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. We've got one lone leader, and it's Jo Tindley. She's the rider who set this rate alive earlier on. She was the rider who attacked first. It was Tindley Leech who immediately got onto the coattails of the 37-year-old British rider. They had an advantage of 4 minutes when they had one chaser behind. That was Lucy Lee. She was always hovering at the 50-second, 1 minute, 1 minute and 10 seconds around that point. Tindley Leech suffered a mechanical problem, sadly, with her front derailleur. That meant that she lost an awful lot of time. She had to have a bike change as they went through Adlington. Jo Tindley has pursued today's stage alone. Behind Emma-Kate Dimbleby and Lucy Lee have joined forces. They're in the chase group behind. And at the front of the peloton, it's been Team SD Worx Pro Time who've been controlling the day throughout, once, especially when they started to sense the danger of the duo who were out front and they started to see the time gap over 4 minutes. They knew they had to be put to work, and of course this stage has been bookmarked as a sprinter stage, one for the fast riders, and with SD Worx Pro Time having the fastest rider in the world within their roster, Lorena Wiebes, she'll be looking to try and take the victory into Warrington. Today's stage, 106.8 kilometre stage with just a little under 800 metres of elevation, and here is Tindley Leech, who has had to have that bike change. She's on a spare bike of another team after their team had all of their bikes stolen overnight between stages 1 and 2. Thanks for joining. My name's Hannah Walker, and alongside me is Jo Rousel, and it seems as though, Jo, that Maddie Leach has given up the chase to Jo Tindley. Lucy Lee, Emma-Kate Dimbleby have joined forces. Now we've got 3 chasers as we go through Mottram St Andrew.
Yeah, really glad we've got to see this moment here. So it was agonising for Maddie Leach having all those mechanical problems, very long wait for a bike change, as you say. Not a bike that she's used to as well, due to all the team bikes unfortunately being stolen. But the international peloton really rallying together to help out the team to be able to provide spare bikes from their own stock. But now we've got 3 riders together. 3 runners, all from British teams, trying to work hard to hold off this peloton. This part of the course now, we are very much heading back towards Warrington. We are heading west, we are into a headwind. So the fact that there is 3 of them working together is really going to help rather than just being out on your own. Which is a situation for Jo Tindley, who we've just gone back to now. She's our lone leader, and look at all the crowds out here.
This is brilliant as we head through Alderley Edge on London Road here. Everybody out in force to cheer on stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Of course, an area that's associated with many footballers living here as well. Author Alan Gardner's book, The Weirdstone of Bringsinghamon, is a compulsive and often compulsory reading for many school children around here, but of course it's actually more now renowned for its wealth, opulence, celebrity lifestyle in this area, wine bars and millionaire properties. It's also got some brilliant rides along the way and beautiful surroundings with the edge. Sits on top of that old copper and lead mine. Lucy Lee leads this chasing trio round the right-hand corner onto London Road into the centre of Alderley Edge. 40 kilometres to go when coming up to 1 hour and 45 minutes of racing complete. We start to think about what is going to happen behind. Who are the favourites to look out for? Who will be wanting to try and sprint and make sure that they bring back our lone leader and of course the chasing trio to be able to try and take a stage victory into Warrington today, Jo, because we've already mentioned about Lorena Wiebes on several occasions. We know that she's one of the fastest riders on 2 wheels. She's got boasts more than 82 professional victories, but there's others who will really want to challenge today.
There certainly will, and I think now we're inside that 40k to go mark. I always think psychologically, that's going to be round about an hour to go of racing, depending on the average speed, of course. So that's always the sort of moment in your mind as a rider to think, right, okay, I need to start concentrating a bit more now. Of course, when you get to that sort of 20k to go mark, even more so in that final 10k, absolutely full concentration to be in the right place at the right time. But yeah, as you mentioned, Lorena Vibes, standout favourite for today's stage, because we know how fast she is in a sprint, and it has been her team that have been working on the front all day. But there's a lot of runners that I do want to look out for. So first of all, from the Great Britain cycling team, Flora Perkins, just 20 years old. She could be a rider that has been up there in some bunch sprints in World Tour races this year. Of course, not racing for her World Tour team this week, racing for the Great Britain national team. And we know that they've got riders up there on GC. We know they've got Lizzie Dignan in that Queen of the Mountains jersey. So it won't be their priority, but I'm wondering if she can sort of follow some wheels and see exactly where she gets to. Also looking towards Liverlula Jaco, the almost winner of stage one, Leticia Paternoster, is I think a rider that will be up there potentially challenging Lorena Vibes. But the big name that I really want to see how she can do here, if she's been well looked after by her team, is Charlotte Kool. So she's the rider that has previously been able to beat Lorena Vibes on the biggest stage at some of the biggest races in the world. It has not all clicked for her this year. We had a bit of a conversation about her team DSM Firmenich personnel earlier on in today's stage. They do have Five for Georgie, the British champion, as part of their squad, who's in fourth on GC. But I think it would really boost the whole squad if Charlotte Kool could get the win today. They know that she's capable of it. She's done it before. And for a team that have not had that many wins this season, that are really sort of waiting for some more big results to come their way, I think that would really boost everybody. So very much looking forward to seeing what that team can do. Of course, the onus isn't on them to do the chasing, and that is the big advantage that they've got. They've not got the race leader, that is SD Works Pro Times Lotte Kopecky, using that green jersey. So they have to do the work. They have to be the ones bringing this back. So I'm hoping that the likes of Liverlula Jaco and Team DSM Firmenich PostNL can really benefit from the fact that SD Works is doing all the work.
When you compare Team SD Works Pro Time, who've had 31 professional road victories this season alone, versus Team DSM Firmenich PostNL, who've had one professional victory this season, that's come at the Tour of Normandy with Josie Nelson. It's almost getting to the point in the season where they need to deliver victories. And Charlotte Kool, we mentioned earlier on, she suffered illness at the start of the season. It didn't go her way. She's had 5 podiums already, so she's come close to the victory, but not yet being able to deliver that. And we've seen, when we've seen shots of the front of the peloton, they've been keeping their powder dry, they've been keeping their nose out of the wind, only coming to the fore when it's been technical or a real key point on the course.
Yeah, so riding really well in that sense. Like I said, the onus is not on them to do the chasing, but still to make sure that they're in the right place when the sections of the course are technical and there could be issues. So riding really well in that sense. At the moment, you can't see the Team DSM Firmenich PostNL up there at the moment. They do seem to be sat a little bit further back. It's Human Powered Health who are the next team who are behind SD Works in that train at the front. We've already mentioned Linda Zanetti as a potential for today's stage, because we know she has got a fast finish, a 22-year-old. But there's other riders, like real sort of perhaps more unknown in the road sense, but Nia Evans, multiple world champion on the track, doesn't race much on the road at all, is local to here, will be very much preparing for the Olympic Games, pending selection for Team GB for the track events. She's here riding for Torelli, number 111, Nia Evans. If you do catch sight of her, no reason for her team to do any work whatsoever, but could she follow some wheels and get herself in the right place?
No reason for them to do any work, but for Nia Evans, when she has competed in road races, and I think back to Birmingham at the Commonwealth Games in 2022 when she took the silver medal behind Georgia Baker, it was a brilliant performance. It was a strong sprint from her, and we know from the track prowess, and I know you follow it very, very closely, Joe, with World Championships and European Championships on the track, how powerful and how fast she is. And she's also quite savvy at following her way through and following the wheels.
Yeah, really technically very strong in terms of riding in a bunch. Like we said, more often seeing her on the track, previous points race world champion, reigning Madison world champion with Eleanor Barker, who's also in this race with the Great Britain cycling team. So we know that the races that suit her are the ones that have got the points available in those sprints. She's also a very good team pursuiter as well, Olympic medalist. But I'm looking forward to seeing how she could do as an outsider, as a rider that we're not used to seeing racing World Tour races. So the pressure is not on her at all. You know, we're all mentioning the big names from the big World Tour teams, but she's just a little outside hope that I'd like to keep an eye out for.
So we've had Lorena Wiebe, Charlotte Cole, Letizia Paternoster, Linda Zanetti to watch out for, Nia Evans, perhaps Marjolein van Geloof from Hess Pro Cycling. She's a rider who is very good in the bunch sprint. She's made a team change this season from what was Life Plus Wahoo last year she was with, and joined the British Continental team. Of course, Human Powered Health she was with last year. She's previously been in during her career with Life Plus Wahoo. She's had one professional victory to her name, and she's had some good solid results this year. A couple of podiums, a couple of top 5 finishes, top 10 finishes. She's, of course, had a team who have been very active in the early part of today's stage. They didn't quite manage to make it into the breakaway, but they've got Casasola, who is the Italian 24-year-old within the team. Also Nicole Frame, a former Australian road race champion. Grace Lister, who was local to stage 1, so she's got a strong team around her. Other riders to watch out for in Roxane Fournier from Saint-Michel Mavic-Aubert 93, looking for her first victory since the 14th of August 2016. She's had 9 pro wins. She's a good sprinter, but for that team, perhaps they'll be looking to try and protect Victoire Gilman.
Yes, they do have 7th place on GC with Victoire Gilman. Rider number 64, so we will look out for where she is. But yeah, if we do come down to this bunch sprint that we're all expecting, you know, you mentioned already the 3 kilometer rule. So if an incident happens in the last 3 kilometers, riders will still get the same time as the peloton. So it's slightly less stress in that sense for the overall GC, and an opportunity for some riders that wouldn't potentially be a team leader, but might be able to sneak a chance in a bunch sprint. You never know what can happen.
Well, these are images from earlier on in the day, just to give you a recap if you're just joining us for stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, as to how the race has unfolded so far and how we've got to the situation we have out on the road. It was Hess Pro Cycling who were the first to make an injection of pace, but it was all closely shut down as we were on the narrow country lanes of Cheshire. It was Volker Wessels with Valerie de May, the Belgian rider, who was trying to animate the race, trying to get herself into a breakaway. It was closely followed again by Hess Pro Cycling, but you can see there the Lloyds Bank green jersey on the shoulders of Lotte Kopecky, the world champion, was never too far away. And sadly for Alice McWilliam, this is the British rider from Hess Pro Cycling who sadly suffered a crash. The rider number 95 had to abandon today's stage, so sad news for that team. Joe Tindley sensed an opportunity to make an attack, the rider in the red jersey from Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Hargreaves Contracting, and immediately it was Maddie Leach of Life Plus Wahoo, the 21-year-old British rider, who was straight on to the wheel of the experienced Joe Tindley. The duo worked well on the narrow country roads. They started to lose a little bit of time once they went onto the main roads and the main A roads. But they were persistent. They continued to work together. They had that cohesion and they built a solid lead and a solid advantage. But behind, it was Kiva O'Brien of Das Hutchinson Brother UK who was the sole chaser behind. She had some work to do, the 22-year-old Irish rider. And this was the moment again when Volker Wessels tried to make a move, Joe. So there was so much action and animation in the early part of the stage.
Yeah, so many teams know that if they just sit and wait for it to be a bunch sprint, they've got a very, very slim chance of winning the bike race. So there have been a lot of teams today, knowing that the course is the flattest one that we've got, by no means flat whatsoever, some tough climbs in and around Macclesfield, but there will have been a lot of teams that would have said, you know, the DS would have been saying to their riders, if there's a break, you've got to be in it, or you've got to go across to it, or you've got to make that breakaway, you've got to do something today. I'm just seeing here one of the earlier Queen of the Mountains and Dog nicely on a lead there, which has nervous moments earlier on. But yeah, no, a lot of teams, you know, if you're not part of the SD Works team, you've got to try something. But it really has been the continental teams that have been the ones trying something. The other World Tour teams have got some riders up there overall. for Team DSM Firmenich personnel and for Liverlula Jayco. So they're probably perhaps happier with the situation and maybe looking more towards tomorrow, thinking they'll have a go in the sprint today. But it's all these continental teams that have been ever so keen to try and make it away. And super impressed with our two runners that we're seeing on the screen from the images earlier today. It was, of course, Joe Tindley, 37 years old, one of the elder riders in the peloton for Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Coffee, Hargreaves Contracting, who made that move. And then one of the younger riders, just 21 years old, Maddie Leach, that was the rider that went with her. So really nice to see the mixture of youth and experience in that breakaway, but they were working ever so well together until we later saw some mechanical issues happening.
We certainly did. Lucy Lee persisted in the chase behind the first Queen of the Mountain of the day. That was won by Madeline Lee. She took the 4 points on that Category 3 climb ahead of Joe Tindley. Lucy Lee taking the 2 points. And the wind picked up. The rain so far, touch wood, has kept itself at bay. We had a little sprinkling of rain earlier on in the stage just before things got underway. But so far, the sun has come out, but the wind has been high. And they had a roaring tailwind for the first part of the stage as they made their way anti-clockwise towards Macclesfield before making their way towards the next Queen of the Mountain of the day. That was on Shrigley Road. Coming to the top of Pax Hill, they had a good advantage, and at this point it was more than 4 minutes for this duo.
It was really, really big gap they were able to draw out, working very well together, which was really impressive quite how well they were able to work together, because these are some tough roads out here that they're racing on. But also the fact that they got that bigger gap, you know that the bigger teams will be already thinking about what they can do to bring it back. We saw some images here of SD Works Pro Time, the team that are on the front. They have got world champion and overall race leader Lotte Kopecky in the green jersey for their squad, as well as hot favourite for today, Lorena Vivas, who we've already spoken about, has had so many bike race wins and is so consistent in bunch sprints because she really is the fastest rider in the world at the moment. But they've been controlling things all day, and the bigger that gap gets, you know, the tougher it is going to be to bring it back. It's going to get very tough in the peloton. Back with live pictures now, though, we can still see Joe Tindley is the one rider who is away solo, followed by the commissaire car and the neutral service car here. We can see these images at the moment. She's still ploughing on by herself, so nasty situation it was with Maddie Leach, unfortunately having mechanical issues, having to eventually get a bike change. There was a bike that was donated, I believe, by Danny Stam of the SD Works Pro Time squad. A lot of teams rallying around and able to provide Life Plus Wahoo with spare bikes after their bikes were unfortunately stolen between stages 1 and 2. So something that we do see occasionally in international bike racing already. Of course, something that nobody ever wants to see, but really glad that the team were able to carry on the race. But that is why we're back with just the solo leader, Joe Tindley, at the moment. Back with the back of the peloton here. It looks like our other 3 chasers may have been swallowed up by the peloton. We can't quite see at the moment. We will bring you confirmation as soon as we can. This is Alice Wood just going through the back of the shot at the moment for Human Powered Health. Formerly Alice Barnes, if you've been a follower of women's professional road racing for a number of years. A rider that is living local to this region, so will know these roads very well. And we can just see her working her way back up through the bunch. Back with the front on these live pictures, it's still SD Works on the front of the peloton at the moment, followed closely by Human Powered Health now. And we'll wait to see how many kilometres we've got to go, because the next thing coming up on today's stage is the sprint, which is at 23.3 kilometres to go in Mere, which is just outside of Knutsford. There's going to be some very fast, flat, wide roads there as we come into that sprint. But we do have the headwind on this part of the course, so it is slightly tougher than earlier on when we had the tailwind. But we can just see there now, Hannah, 31k to go.
31 kilometres to go, just coming up to almost 2 hours of racing. And you mentioned that headwind. It makes it awfully difficult for lone riders against a peloton with fresher legs, with more resources to be able to use, and particularly for our chasing group too.
Yeah, so we have seen Joe Tindley is still out solo. We're not sure if that chasing group have got swallowed up or not, because we just unfortunately had some low signal area here. But yeah, very much the advantage Peloton when you've got the headwind section like this. There'll be a lot of riders that have been able to follow the wheels, lots of fresh legs. Huge contrast with Joe Tindley, who attacked ever so early on in today's stage, did have the company of Maddie Leach, but is now going solo. And this is it. She's got to completely empty the tank. She's got just over 30 kilometres of racing, very much inside that final hour of racing. Stage 3 of 4, of course, now we are the Tour of Britain women. So very, very close towards the end of this stage race. And just so impressed with how composed she stayed in this situation. You know, that experience really sort of paying off, her able to communicate to Maddie Leach and tell her what the problem was, and of course try and wait for her while she was able to get that bike change. But in this situation, forced to continue on solo.
Joe Tindley passes a sign for Knutsford. She goes through. It won't be long until she'll get to that one and only intermediate sprint of the day when we get to Mere. I guess showing her experience, you can see how she uses the road and the hedgerows when you can hear the wind blowing, just to try and protect herself as much as possible, give herself as much shelter as she can, using the road to her advantage, because now she doesn't have a wheel to sit on to get that little bit of respite.
Yeah, it's all on her now. So any opportunity to take the shorter line on the road, any bend at all, take the shortest option. Make sure you use any sort of shelter that you have got out there, because judging by our maps here, it is looking like it is a block headwind at the moment. Wind speeds around 23 to 24 kilometres an hour, so up to around 15 miles an hour, which I can promise you on a bike when you're on your own, trying to hold off a peloton like this, it feels like the windest conditions ever, doesn't it?
It's awful, isn't it? It's awful, and it feels like it's never ending also, I guess, when you've got that wind in your face, as you start to see the riders in the yellow and orange jerseys of Saint Michel Mavic Aubert 93 just take on some food and nutrition. And if you're watching and you're from the northwest of England, and you're into cycling, and perhaps you've done a Wednesday night Club 10, you'll know this part of the road very well. This is the turn, Joe, and I'm sure you've done the Club 10 on a Wednesday evening.
I certainly have, yeah. The Chelford 10, the Chelford bypass, 10-mile time trial, so 16 kilometres if you're more used to using the kilometres for your cycling. But that is the turn. That is the halfway point where you start heading back toward Chelford. So yeah, really common for any riders based in and around the Manchester area. Real sort of part of cycling culture in the UK. I know you were speaking yesterday a lot with Danny about hill climbs and how sort of unique they are to the UK, but I think time trialling in general is something that we're really big on here in the UK. It was previously banned many years ago, so
Absolutely.
all courses have a course code, which, you know, is really sort of quite a niche area of expertise, but yeah, every course will be coded for their region and for their distance. I think these are J courses up here.
These are J courses. This particular one, J21. The other part of the course where we were on Jodrell Bank, that was J23. As we come up towards... Joe Tindley's heading towards Mere for that one and only intermediate sprint of the day. She's got an individual time trial pursuit of her own, but behind, well, chasing duo and Madeline Leach, who was caught by Lucy Lee and Emma Caitlin Dimbleby. They put up a good fight, but they have been caught by the peloton. SD Works Pro Time with Elena Cecchini have made the junction. No more chasers, one rider out front, and that is the 37-year-old British rider Joe Tindley of Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Coffee, who is still away. She's looking to try and take points in the intermediate sprint and, of course, the bonus seconds. That's not going to change anything in terms of the general classification. But what the intermediate sprint does come with is prize money. And this team will not only be looking for, of course, the visibility and trying to get a result here, Joe, but that is also an important factor, that each of these prizes, Queen of the Mountains, intermediate sprints, most combative rider, which I have to mention, any of you watching at home, you can get involved. Head to the social media channels of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain. You can choose who you think should be the most combative rider of the day and who will be on the podium.
The social media team doing a really good job this week. If you're not able to follow the race live, and you can check them out on Instagram and on X. They're working really hard to bring you updates as well.
At Tour of Britain, you can find them. So get involved, vote for your most combative rider of the day. But yeah, for teams, this is also important because money comes with each of these prizes too.
Yeah, so I mentioned for a lot of the riders on some of these continental teams, there'll be volunteers that are working for them this week. It will be partners, it will be parents, anybody that's willing to get involved and help out with some mechanics or as the soigneur at the feed zone. You know, they haven't got the luxury of full-time staff members, so any sort of prize money you can get is really helpful. Normally that all goes into a pot and you sort of divide up at the end with your teammates. It's not all just for you personally, but of course it's really important, especially for these smaller teams that haven't got the big budgets of the likes of SD Works. It does already help towards the cause at a race like this.
So important as the Peloton make their way through Knutsford town, very close to Tatton Park. Very popular tourist destination with the independent shops, restaurants. And not only can you get involved with picking the most combative rider and having your input there, but you can also spin to win because there's some great prizes to be available when you become a British Cycling Supporter member right now, including a VIP experience at Lloyds Bank, Tour of Britain Men. That's in September. You can sign up for free, use the QR code, then spin the wheel to reveal what you've won. If you're not able to use the QR code, you can head to www.britishcycling.org.uk/spin-2-win. Make sure you get involved. Some great prizes there on offer to be won. And having seen this and what's on offer for the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, it's going to be much of the same for the men's race in September, Joe.
Yeah, it certainly is. So really, really looking forward to being able to have the men's race as well. There was moments where we worried that both races could have been lost, but both are, of course, very, very much happening. Credit to British Cycling for making that happen. Just gone through the 25k to go mark here, and for the first time for a while, not the first time this stage, but the first time certainly for a while, seeing Liverlula Jaco coming up to the front here. So seeing Tanel Campbell up the front. She's a rider that's so used to doing a lot of work on the front of the peloton, and we're seeing 48 seconds now for Jo Tindley. So I'm really hoping she's able to stay away for this sprint, because the pace is going to up in the peloton here as they get themselves organised for the all-important bonus seconds.
Well, Jo Tindley goes through the 1 kilometre to go marker before she gets to that intermediate sprint at Mere. Bonus seconds on offer, points on offer. The jersey is led by Lotte Kopecky. It's currently being borrowed and kept warm by Letizia Paternoster because, of course, Lotte Kopecky is in our green Lloyds Bank leaders jersey as the leader of the overall general classification. She should stay away to take these points, but you can see and you can hear the wind from the camera motorbike here of how hard this is, just from the grimace on the face of Jo Tindley, the body language. She's starting to rock and roll and starting to tire here. Behind, we've seen that change with SD Works Pro Time, and I'll come back to that once we go through the intermediate sprint. But Tindley, she's starting to feel the fatigue now.
Yeah, she is. And normally at this point, the DS in the car will be saying to the rider, like, just focus on staying away for the sprint. After that, they'll probably tell you to pick another point in the course or just focus on staying away for. But at this point in the race, just focusing on those small targets that you can ahead of you, it can feel like an awfully long way to think about that 25k or so to the finish. But if you can just focus on the next point, like you mentioned, prize money available, points and seconds available, not quite so crucial to Jo Tindley for her GC position, but any of these intermediate points in the race will be the focus for now when the fatigue is really, really setting in.
Jo Tindley can see that banner up ahead. The intermediate sprint at Mere is well supported. You can see the Weavers Cycling Club on the left-hand side. Jo Tindley gets a good cheer as she goes through. She takes the 3 bonus seconds and the 4 points. It doesn't do anything in terms of the red jersey, that sprint's classification, but behind on this wide road, this is almost like we're going into the finish in Warrington already, but this is for the bonus seconds, Joe, into this finish. Human-powered health down the centre of the road in the orange and purple jersey, setting things up. Also, Volker Vessels are there with Aline Janssen on the far left-hand side of the screen. It's Amber Pate who's got Ruby Rose Mangannon and Letizia Paternoster. Bonus seconds crucially on offer. And look at this. This is a big sprint between Paternoster and Janssen. Paternoster takes the points ahead of the 22-year-old Dutch rider.
Yeah, so in terms of time bonuses, there was 2 seconds and 1 second available there for the two riders over the line, because of course Joe Tindley took the maximum seconds. Also points for the sprint competition, which Paternoster is in, is actually Kopecky leading that competition. But crucially, nobody from Team DSM Firmenich personnel was up there. So no Charlotte Kool, no Pfeiffer Georgie. So Pfeiffer Georgie has now lost 2 seconds to Letizia Paternoster on the overall. There was 4 seconds separating them before today's stage. Paternoster taking 2 seconds there. So Liverlula Draco really mean business to maintain this podium position for Paternoster. Could that have been an effort that was slightly too much thinking towards the finish? That's the other question. So we didn't see Charlotte Kool up there, but could she be keeping her powder dry for the big bunch sprint at the end?
It's a big possibility, isn't it? Because for them, those riders who perhaps feel like they can try and take a sprint victory, we didn't see Kopecky up there trying to add any more seconds to her advantage, nor Wiebes trying to take away seconds. We did see a change at the head of the peloton, Joe, with SD Works almost allowing other teams to come through and say, well, we've done the work here to bring the gap down to our leading riders, and we've caught the chasers. You can take it up. We're quite happy the fact that there's only 30 seconds now. We're not worried. We know there's only one rider to bring back. But now immediately it's almost like they've said, we'll let them go for this intermediate sprint, but now they've regained the front position at the front with Elena Cecchini and Christine Majerus. There's Anna Henderson, who sits second overall in the classification in that white jersey on the yellow Cervelo.
Yeah, exactly that, Hannah. So like you say, it's been SD Works Pro Time pretty much all day, controlling the peloton, controlling the gap to the breakaway. It is, of course, just Joe Tindley away now with, I think it was just over 30 seconds the last opportunity we got that we saw the time gap. But SD Works back in control now with the favourite for the stage and the overall leader. You can see Team DSM Firmenich personnel in the middle of the shot there. So they're not the team that are taking on the chasing at the moment, but they are coming towards the front. They will be thinking about Charlotte Kool for the stage and Pfeiffer Georgie for maintaining her position overall. And of course, Charlotte Kool has got a really strong lead-out woman in Rachele Barbieri, who's been so crucial to a lot of her lead-outs so far this season, the Italian rider. So I'm going to be looking towards what that team are doing, but still without having to really take it on in the way that SD Works are. Now, so for SD Works Pro Time, the time gap here, 36 seconds. They'll have heard that. They'll have seen that on the blackboard as well. This is the point where, do they want to bring this back quickly and open themselves up to other potential attacks? Or are they going to, as we normally say in cycling, leave Joe out to dry, hang her out to dry, and just sort of leave that gap lurking at around that 30-second mark and then bring her back right towards the end of the stage?
If you're a sports director, Joe, in one of these team cars, you're guiding a team and you know you've got a sprinter who is raring and ready to go to try and sprint into Warrington, and you know you've got one rider out front here. What are you telling the riders at this point when you've got a little over 20 kilometres remaining on the stage, and you know it's going to get quite technical as we head into the run into the finish line in Warrington, because we're on this wide road now, but right into this headwind, it also adds its difficulties and its problems.
Yeah, I think no panic for the next sort of 5K or so. At that point, as we turn off the main road and start to go onto smaller roads, that is when it really gets more technical. That's when you really want to be vigilant and be in the right place at the right time. In this section, as you said, headwind, wide road, it's very much follow the wheels, look after yourself, don't put out any extra watt that you don't need to put out. Do start to look where the other big sprinters are, see who's getting themselves in position. You can also get an idea for who's feeling good, because if a big name sprinter isn't on the back of their train, if they're sitting further back in the bunch, perhaps they're not feeling good today, perhaps that team is working for somebody else. So you can learn so much just from being in the peloton and seeing what's going on around you, which of course the DS can't see all of that. You know, they'll be trying to follow the race best they can, but they're in the convoy a few cars back. So as much as the advice from the DS is useful, also you and your knowledge and your racecraft and just sort of having that feel of what riders to follow is really important.
Using that racing instinct, knowing where to be in the peloton, and I know you were watching very closely over the first 2 stages, Joe, and Danny and I were talking about it at great depth, that some riders just have that instinct of where to be naturally in a peloton. They they can always be at the right place at the right time. One of those riders being Lizzie Deignan, and she'll be crucial today for Anna Henderson just to make sure that she doesn't lose any time in that classification. Some perhaps it comes more naturally to than others. Some really struggle with that positioning aspect.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So some riders, it just comes really naturally to. They ride their first race in a big peloton and they just seem to be in the right place at the right time. And you're like, wow, how are you so good at that? Fair play to those riders. I wasn't one of them myself. I had to work very, very hard at being able to be in the right place at the right time. So for other riders, you know, years of experience will pay off and they'll know when the time comes that they need to get themselves to the front. They know that they'll have to, you know, there's parts of the course they can relax in, there's parts that they really, really can't relax in. But you can see on the course here, you know, we're talking about how important positioning is. This is a really wide road, but the peloton are only using half of it. And this shows how tough the conditions are with the headwind and also how hard SD Works are working. So anybody at the moment could come round now and get themselves to the front. But SD Works are not completely stringing out the peloton, but giving it that sort of shape that just shows you that they are pushing on.
And I guess here we've got 80 riders remaining. We started with 89 riders at the start of this Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. We lost one rider today in Alice McWilliam. We've got one rider out front, 81 riders total in the race, 80 riders in that peloton. And so when you've got this wide road, there's little place for shelter, particularly when that speed is high. And 28 seconds you can see there for Jo Tindley. She's not giving up the ride at the front here. This is one of the first times that she's looked behind and you can just see that big sigh from Jo Tindley. This is hard work, but she's doing a great job. She's doing her team proud. She's doing her sponsors proud. She's doing herself proud.
She certainly is, like you say, the team, the sponsors, herself, all the British fans watching, everybody that's been involved in bike racing in the UK. Like you mentioned, she's been part of the scene for a good sort of 20 plus years at various levels. So there'll be a lot of support for Jo out there today, and she will keep pushing on. You can see her looking over her shoulder here, just seeing exactly how far away that peloton is. Really tough moments here for her with this headwind, but she's still pushing on. She's still doing everything she can. She won't give up until it's over, because you never know exactly what's going to happen in a bike race. You know, it's not over till it's over. But at the moment, she will push on. For those last few kilometres, any few kilometres she can stay away, the better. It's been a really, really long day out there. And we have already mentioned that combativity prize is another prize that's important and still a very prestigious one in any bike race.
I'm just going to have a little check because the poll is just about still open. It's very close between the riders that you can vote for: Madeline Leach, Jo Tindley, Lucy Lee and Caitlin Dimbleby. It's over to you, the fans at home, to decide who will be the winner of the most combative prize of the day. It's a great way, if you're not able to be roadside watching here at the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, to still be involved, still have your say. And I think in the past, Jo, we've had combativity prizes that have been given amongst the race organisation, whether that's commissaires, race directors on a panel within the race organisation. But this is a really nice touch that you can get the fans involved here.
Yeah, you can get the fans involved, and you know, in 2024, social media is a huge part of all of our lives, and a really important way to take sport to the fans and keep fans engaged. I was part of a discussion once where they were saying that the younger generation always like to have two screens at any time, so there'll be a TV screen and the phone screen, so never just watching the one screen. So if we can engage fans on social media as well as watching on TV at the same time, that is really the way forward now. So very good to see the social media team working so hard there across platforms. And you can all still get involved at home.
Get involved, open up your smartphones, open up and follow to @Tour of Britain on X, on social media channels, and you can have your say who wins that most combative prize of the day. And don't forget, you can also spin to win prizes. Scan that QR code on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Some great prizes available. That's when you become a British Cycling supporter. You can become a member right now. Prizes include a VIP experience at the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Men, which is in September, so a few months from now. You've got time to plan that all out. You can sign up for free, then you spin the wheel, reveal what you've won. There's some excellent prizes on offer, and if you can't scan that QR code with your smartphone, or you're having problems, or you couldn't quite manage to get your smartphone from wherever it is to be able to scan that QR code there, you can head to the link. It's www.britishcycling.org.uk/spin-2-win. Good luck. You've got to be in it to win it. Inside the final 20 kilometres, 18 kilometres to go, 2 hours and 20 minutes of racing. One leader is still out front, and it's the rider who started the breakaway in the very first instance. It's Joe Tindley of Pro Noctis, 200 degrees Hargreaves Contracting, who has a slender advantage over the peloton behind. It's all being led by Elena Cecchini, the former Italian road race champion of Team SD Works. She's got Christine Majeras for assistance. She's had Chantal van den Broek-Black throughout the race. You can just see her there sitting in second wheel. Chantal van den Broek-Black with the former world champion stripes on the cuffs of her sleeves and a collar. As now we get one of the first big sightings of Team DSM Firmenich Postonel in that blue and orange and white jersey, led at the moment by Abby Smith. They've got a big job on their hands today, because you can just see the figure of Charlotte Kool, who's looking to try and take her first victory of the season.
Yeah, she certainly is. And for Team DSM Firmenich Postonel, we mentioned earlier on, only one victory this season. Last year they took 19 victories. The year before that, 28 victories. So previously a team well used to being on the podium, but this year things haven't quite clicked in the same way in terms of victories. A lot of very strong results, a lot of podiums, and Charlotte Kool is the rider that we know in the past has beaten the superstar that is Lorena Wiebes. She just hasn't quite got it right yet this season, but has clearly been throughout today's stage, hiding in the peloton, saving energy. Her team haven't had to be the ones doing the chasing, and she also didn't go for that intermediate sprint either.
She knows she can do it, though, because on her first meeting with Lorena Wiebes last year at the UAE Women's Tour, racing into Dubai Harbour, it was Charlotte Kool who edged the victory over Lorena Wiebes, so she knows she can do it, but it's all coming together on the day as well, amongst your riders, your team. She's got Rachele Barbieri as one of her final lead-out riders to guide her through. Sometimes things just don't click together in a season, and we know she struggled with illness.
Yeah, and for anyone that isn't aware of the story, Charlotte Kool and Lorena Wiebes used to be on the same team. So Charlotte Kool used to be like the last lead-out rider for Lorena Wiebes, and it was really exciting when they then went to separate teams, because we could have that really good head-to-head. But like you say, things not quite clicked this season for Charlotte Kool, but clearly her team have got faith in her. You mentioned as well Rachele Barbieri, the Italian rider, super experienced rider, 27 years old now, regular part of the Italian track squad in previous years as well. She's a key lead-out rider for Charlotte Kool. As part of the Team DSM Firmenich Postonel squad. So I'll be looking out for her, making sure she gets herself in the right position in order to lead out Charlotte Kool. But still SD Works Pro Time doing the work here. But I am very excited to see this clash that we're hoping to see between the big names.
We're hoping to see the clash, but meanwhile we've been talking, the time gap, and despite the headwind for Joe Tindley, has only grown. 50 seconds is the advantage for the 37-year-old British rider. Now, ordinarily, and if you've followed along with cycling for many, many years, you'll know the rule of thumb. If you're new to cycling, generally we say that a breakaway, if it's got 1 minute, it's 1 minute for every 10 kilometres. Yep. So at the moment, it's hanging in the balance for Joe Tindley, but that must give her confidence when she hears her sports director in her ear, Alan Gornall, in that team car say, you've gone from 30 seconds, you've now got 50 seconds, and despite the effort and the fatigue that you're feeling right now, you're actually moving away, further away from the peloton here, despite the chase behind.
Yeah, and she has got to commit 100% at this point. Latest time check there, 45 seconds. That's still a decent time gap. And yeah, SD Works Pro Time have got work to do. They do know what they're doing. They are very good in these situations, but they can still get it wrong. They are still human. Anything can happen in bike racing. That is why we love bike racing, the unpredictability of it all. So at the moment, very much encouraging Jo Tindley, giving absolutely everything that she's got here. She's done a stunning ride for her team, for the sponsors, and sort of representing, you know, for the sake of all the continental teams that are here, all those smaller British teams that have come to this to this Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women this year, that's been able to get put on so last minute, relatively speaking. 15k to go now for Jo Tindley. She just needs to keep pushing on, keep believing. Every kilometre she can stay away, kilometre closer to the end, and a kilometre less that SD Works have got to play with to get this right.
Through 15 kilometres to go. Jo Tindley 43 seconds to the good of the peloton as they pass through the 15-kilometre marker. It's been an incredible performance from the 37-year-old British rider Jo Tindley, and she's really starting to feel the effects now. If you're just joining us, welcome along. It's stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, starting and finishing in Warrington, a 106.8 kilometre stage. We've had a strong breakaway out front, which included Jo Tindley and Tindley Leech. We had a chaser in Kiva O'Brien and Amelia Tyler. They were caught by the peloton. Then we had Lucy Lee, who was persistent for kilometre after kilometre. She never reached the front of the race, but it was a brave effort nonetheless. She was then caught by Emma Caitlin Dimbleby, and then they were caught by the peloton. Tindley Leech, meanwhile, had a mechanical problem. She had to have a bike change and could no longer stay with Jo Tindley. Having had that bike change, she is now back in the peloton too. We're heading for Warrington. It's always been one that has been bookmarked as a stage for the sprinters, a flat stage with a little less than 800 metres of elevation. Teams starting to amass themselves. Thanks for joining us. My name's Hannah Walker. Alongside me is Joanna Rousel. And now we start to see a new team that's represented up towards the front, and that's the red and white team of Cofidis, the French UCI Continental women's team. And they'll be looking after the interests of Sarah Roy, the 38-year-old Australian rider from Sydney, who will be looking to try and take her second pro victory of this season alone. Human-powered Health of Air in the orange and purple jerseys, looking after the young Swiss rider Linda Zanatti. Trying to be guided by the experience of Alice Wood. Saint-Michel Mavic-Aubert, 93 in the yellow and orange jerseys, looking after Roxane Fournier. It's been 8 years without a victory for the 30-year-old French rider. We're really starting to see the front of this peloton now take shape as everyone's trying to find positions here, Jo.
Yeah, they are. So even without really thinking about the chase, the pace in the peloton naturally increases in this situation because a number of teams want to get themselves to the front. Other teams want to maintain their position at the front. And we can see those multiple lead-out trains begin to form. But you can see here they're not going full gas because they are still spread across the road. Jo Tindley here, really, really big effort, still trying to stay away. Has been looking over her shoulder a few times, but ooh, big attack now.
Big attack, and this is Volker Wessel's Women's Pro Cycling, who was very animated at the start of the stage. They missed the move, and this looks as though it's the Belgian rider Valerie de May, the 30-year-old, who's trying to go clear. They don't really have a clear sprinter within their squad. They've got Van Pachtenbaker, who has been very consistent over the last couple of stages. They've got Scarlett Souden, but no real big sprinter. Tindley's caught by Valerie de May. She'll be swept up by the peloton, and de May, with fresh legs, is going clear of the peloton.
Yeah, really exciting moments now. So Volker Wessel's Women's Pro Cycling Team and Valerie de May in particular, always racing aggressively. So really taking the opportunity here, not content for it to be a bunch sprint, as you said. No real standout sprinter in their squad that they can think will be able to challenge the likes of Lorena Wiebes and Charlotte Kool, Letizia Paternoster, the biggest names that are here. Of course, Elaine Janssen in that white leader's jersey for the young rider competition. Really important to be able to maintain that, but absolutely love to see that they are taking it to the World Tour teams and attacking in the final 15k of this race.
They're wanting to try and upset all of the work that Team SD Works Pro Time have done, and Volker Vessel's not afraid to take it to the world's best UCI Women's World Tour team. This is what we like to see, Joe, that teams aren't afraid to try something. And you take a look at this brilliant helicopter shot over the Cheshire countryside here, and you can see the gap that Valerie Demey has opened up immediately. The run in here is on wide roads. It really does favour the peloton behind, especially with the headwind that they've got to contend with. Of course, we've gone in an anti-clockwise direction. They had that roaring tailwind for the first half of the stage. Now we're heading back into Warrington. They've got that headwind, but it does become technical.
It does become technical, so we're going to very soon be moving off some of these wider roads into some more technical sections. There are a few twists and turns as we come further into Warrington, and every twist and turn really plays into the hands of any rider that is away. You know, you can take your own line on the corner, you're just out of sight for that chasing peloton. So she'll be very, very glad for any little twist in the red. As we're just seeing here, any corner completely can select the line herself, avoid that road furniture in the middle of the road there, and accelerate out of that bend.
Valerie Demey carries all of that speed into that right-hand turn. She pedals away round, and behind the peloton, well, they sense the chase. There's no immediate reaction. They know that they can try and have her under control, but from this camera shot, she's right underway. The first time that she's looked over her shoulder, and she'll see the advantage. She'll see the daylight. Using the hedgerows to her advantage, trying to get as much protection as possible.
Yeah, and even just a bit of a curve in the road like this, it's just ever so slightly out of sight. It makes it far harder for that peloton chasing. When you've got a big, wide, straight road, very easy to judge exactly the sort of effort you need to put in to close that gap gradually. But you can see now the response from the peloton behind just by the shape of it, sort of quite how fast they're moving. We're seeing just 9 seconds for our leader, but they have taken this attack very seriously as we approach the final 10K now.
And they'll know Valerie Demey as a dangerous rider. They'll know that what she's capable of. In the past, she's been very active. She's had plenty of podiums along the way. She's never won a professional race in her career. She started off her career back in 2016 with Top Sport Vlaanderen and Ethics, a Belgian team, and then she rode for a season with Lotto Soudal Ladies before moving into what is Live Racing, and that team is now defunct. So her first year with this UCI Continental Women's team, but for Demey, she's always been a strong rider with good time trialing abilities, good one-day abilities. She's got that experience.
Yeah, very experienced, and also, like we've been saying, not afraid of reputations, not afraid to attack, and does time her attacks well, so doesn't just attack for the sake of it. It seems to be she very much times a big move when there is a crucial opportunity, just lapping up a little bit of crowd noise there as she's in this final 10K of racing. But it's really good to see that she's made this move. I can just see the Great Britain team getting themselves organised on the left-hand side of the shot there. But still, Demey's really pushing on here, and this could be one of those efforts that could potentially surprise the peloton. You never know when these efforts are going to pay off.
Hugging the left-hand side of the road, taking the shortest line possible, the Belgian rider with number 53 on her back, Demey. 10 seconds the advantage is the time gap that we're being given, with 9 kilometers to go and just over 2.5 hours of racing. She'll take this left-hand turn off the roundabout. She'll hear the support. It'll be something that she'll need in this run into Warrington. She uses the bend there. You can see the way that she's used that left-hand corner just to take a slight glance. Where is the peloton? Still the pink-purple jerseys on the front. And it's the Great Britain national team, as you say, Joe, who are amassing themselves. And Eleanor Barker, I'm curious, she's sitting the last rider in the wheel. Will they be sprinting for a rider today, or will it all be about protecting Anna Henderson?
Very good question. Probably a bit of both. So we know that Eleanor Barker is a fast rider. We see her mixing it up on the track as well as the road. Multiple world champion, Olympic champion, of course, on the track. Be looking forward to seeing what she can do this summer. But yeah, really interesting to see if she fancies a sprint herself, or if she more acting in a sort of protection role, because they have got the Queen of the Mountains jersey on the shoulders of Dijkman, as well as second place on GC for Anna Henderson. So 2 important riders to protect for this race going forward for tomorrow, but particularly Anna Henderson's GC place.
Chantal van den Broek Black has become a real master at controlling breakaways. No panic etched on the face of the former world champion. Valerie de May. Well, Chantal van den Broek-Black has made that look easy, and a mechanical problem for de May, and this is heartbreak for the Belgian. The chain was off, problems with the front deraillage. They go into that narrow pinch point under the bridge, under the canal, and that's heartbreaking for Valerie de May, who had that advantage. She attacks one more time out of the left-hand turn. She doesn't give up despite the problems, but it really is a slender advantage.
Yeah, very slender indeed. Just think we're going to see a little replay of perhaps what happened there. Oh, no. Train all jammed, trying really hard to get it back. Looking over her shoulder there, seeing that she's almost caught, but as you say, going through that pinch point, getting out the saddle, trying to attack again. But looks like has been swept up now.
Stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. It's all back together. An animated stage across the Cheshire Plain. The sprinters and the teams getting themselves set. The big showdown, the big rivalry between Team SD Works Pro Time on the far right of the screen against Team DSM Firmenich Post NL as the riders, the teams, they try and get rid of their bottles, hand that and throw that to fans at the roadside.
Picking their moments there when there's plenty of fans at the road, so they'll be very eager to pick up those bottles.
A good opportunity to take a souvenir home from your day watching at the roadside of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. The showdown between Lorena Wiebes and Charlotte Kool is about to commence, but there's going to be other riders who will want to try their hand at taking a stage victory here into Warrington. You can see Kopecky in that green jersey, just takes a sip of the drink. Sits at the back of the line, straight down the centre of the road in the green, black and white jerseys. That's Hess Cycling, one of our invited wildcard teams. You can just see there Marjolein van Geloof, the Dutch rider, just saying to a teammate, just ease back, and that just shows the experience from the Dutch sprinter there.
Yeah, it really doesn't. There's a technical section here where you can, it's really interesting to see who has lost position in this situation and who has been able to maintain it. We've currently got two sort of real distinct separate trains on the road. The left-hand side of the shot there is Team DSM Firmenich Post NL. We've been speaking a lot about Charlotte Kool. On the other side of the road, it is SD Works Pro Time, who at the moment have got the head of the peloton. They are the ones really controlling things, but both the two biggest teams safely through that technical section.
It's Neil Campbell right at the back of the lead out of Team DSM Firmenich Post NL, leading things for Liv Alula-Jayco. And of course, they've got a big job on their hands today. Letizia Paternoster came all so close to taking a stage victory on stage 1. It came down to a photo finish. Millimeters was the difference between her and Lotte Kopecky. Barbieri sits on the wheel of Charlotte Kool. Is this tactical in terms of having Raquel Barbieri on the wheel of Charlotte Kool here, or have they changed the plan? Are they going to sprint for the former Scratch Race world champion?
Very, very good question, Hannah, and that is what makes it really interesting, and it will keep the other teams guessing as well, because they'll be thinking, you know, I want to get the wheel of Charlotte Kool if I can't get the wheel of Lorena Wiebes, and suddenly you might have Raquel Barbieri there, and you'll be thinking, oh, hang on, what's going on here? So keeping everybody guessing at the moment, as you can just see, it's begun to get slightly more disorganised here. A couple of the riders from Team DSM Firmenich Post NL in between the riders from SD Works Pro Time, just going over this bridge here. I think we're approaching about 5k to go now.
5 kilometres to go. They just go over the Manchester Ship Canal all together, and it's still Team SD Works Pro Time who have the control. Millie Cousins moves up in the white jersey for the Great Britain national team. There's Abby Smith just alongside Elena Cecchini. Alice Barnes, you can just see a little further back on the wheel of Raquel Barbieri in that orange and purple jersey for Human Powered Health. She'll be looking to try and guide the young Swiss rider, the 22-year-old Linda Zanatti, to a stage victory. Pfeiffer Georgie, the British champion. She sits 4th overall in the general classification at 6 seconds, thanks to those bonus seconds that Letizia Paternoster won in the intermediate sprint at Meer. You can really start to feel the tension here, Joe, and particularly with Rachele Barbieri, who's on the wheel of Charlotte Kool here in that blue and the orange jersey. She's constantly looking around. She's trying to make sure that no one can box her in or swamp her there.
Yeah, Rachele Barbieri, really, really experienced runner. They've just gone through the 4K to go mark, and you can see here, again, more technical sectors, more teams trying to come up towards the front. SD Works are still up there, but I'm really looking very closely at Team DSM, Firmenich Post NL, because they are the ones that could be really set to challenge SD Works. But Lizzie Duggan there on the front, looking around, trying to see where her teammates are. She's clearly lost the rider that she's trying to work for here.
Eleanor Barker with the yellow helmet on the front for the Great Britain national team brings them through. Dignan slots onto the wheel immediately right at the back of that train there.
Yeah, she's trying to bring Anna Henderson up. Through. She's in that yellow helmet there as well, just on the wheel of Dignan. Also looking towards Flora Perkins, where she is for the Great Britain cycling team. But really tricky to see here, but GB cycling team taking control of things now.
Lizzie Dignan in the blue jersey slots onto the wheel of her national teammate, Eleanor Barker. Just at the back here, there is Alana Castries, the newly crowned Belgian gravel champion. Just trying to move up, and they'll be looking to try and look after Sarah Roy or Christy van Haften, the 25-year-old Dutch rider today. It's been a deceptive stage, Joe, because I think for many riders, they felt that fatigue, they felt the pace, they felt the kilometres in the legs as they go through 3 kilometres to go. Any rider who suffers a mechanical or a crash now will be given the same time as the winner. Any riders in that general classification are now safe.
This is also the first time I've really seen SD Works not in control of things. You can see them in the middle of the shot here. Christine Majerus in that Luxembourg National Champions kit is trying to work her way through, but they've not got complete control of this peloton. It really is the Great Britain cycling team with Eleanor Barker who are taking charge on the left-hand side of the shot there.
And you really have to be careful of some of this road furniture here. So you saw there Christine Majerus, the Luxembourgish champion, switch from the left side of the road to the right. She wants to try and follow the wheel of Alice Wood, who's leading the race at the moment for Human Powered Health, looking after Linda Zanatti. Kopecky moves to that side of the road as well. There is Wiebes, who's on the wheel of the green jersey, our leader of the overall general classification. Sitting on the wheel of Lorena Wiebes, that's Katia Ragusa, the Italian rider who we saw animating stage 1.
Just see Pfeiffer Georgie moving her way up as well, just keeping herself safe, but at the moment no one team keeping things organised, but it's now Lizzie Dignan coming to the front once again for the GB team.
Showing the experience, Lizzie Dignan just coming towards the front. She's got Flora Perkins on the wheel. Anna Henderson is there. You can just see the fleck of yellow on the back of the helmet on Anna Henderson, and that yellow bike too, in that white jersey. And then just coming round now, there's Tennille Campbell, the rider from Trinidad and Tobago for Liv Alula-Jaco. Amber Pate, the brilliant time trialist who's looking after Letizia Paternoster. Jana Korevar is there too. It's really hard here, especially with these wide open roads, Joe, to really keep the control, to have the riders up towards the front. You also don't want to use up your lead-out riders here.
Yeah, a lot of road furniture as well, so very difficult for one team to keep this in control with these wide roads. So we're going to have a sweeping bend inside the final kilometre, so really important to be in the right position for that.
Well, look at the communication there from Hess Pro Cycling with Marjolein van Geloof. She's just saying to her team, you need to move up and I need the wheels to follow. I need my lead-out riders in front of me. Now Nicole Frayne tries to move her way up. There is Marjolein van Geloof trying to organise her team. Will they be sprinting for the Dutch rider, or will this be for Frayne, the former Australian road race champion, as the current road race champion of Australia in the white, green and gold moves up? Ruby Roseman Gannon on the right-hand side. Alongside her is Jana Korevar, and she's got Paternoster on the wheel.
Yeah, Paternoster in that red points jersey at the moment, who almost won that first stage, big favourite for today's stage, but now SD Works are taking control coming into that final K.
Under the Flamme Rouge through 1 kilometre to go, and it's SD Works Pro Time who have the control with Christine Majerus. They've won the first 2 stages with Lotte Kopecky so far as they take that sweeping left-hand bend. The road starts to open up, and look at this. It's in one long line, and if you're out of position now, it's going to be incredibly difficult to try and move yourself up. Here comes Barbara Grischi, the Italian who's quickly becoming one of the best lead-out riders in the world, is sprinting to try and deliver Lorena Wiebes. On the left-hand side in the red jersey, Paternoster wants to go early. She's trying to challenge, and she's trying to get the space, and she's trying to get the clear run. And with 200 metres to go, Kopecky delivers Wiebes. Cool coming on the right-hand side. Wiebes all the way to the line. The former European champion is being challenged. Is going to be close on the line. And coming to the line, it's Lorena Wiebes who wins her 83rd professional victory. It's a 3 in a row for SD Worx Pro Time. And Wiebes wins into Warrington for stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Lorena Wiebes makes it a three-peat for the world's #1 team.
She certainly does. Never in doubt at the end there. She had that clear gap on the line, but looked very tricky in those final few hundred metres. We saw a big challenge from Letizia Paternoster in that red jersey for Liv Alula-Jayco. Also saw Georgia Baker up there, so not even quite sure who they were leading out there. It could have been Paternoster working for Georgia Baker. Charlotte Kool also up there as well for Team DSM Firmenich Post NL. But in the end, it was that big favourite. It was Lorena Wiebes delivering when it matters with the pressure on her shoulders.
Here's the replay, Joe. It's Barbara Grischi who was leading out, handing over to Kopecky, but this was the moment that Paternoster went early.
Yeah, Paternoster goes on the left of the shot there with Baker on her wheel. She goes very, very early. It's to the right-hand side of the shot there that Lorena Wiebes goes, and she leaves Paternoster completely for dead. Charlotte Kool, the only rider able to challenge Wiebes here, holding her wheel to the line, but not able to get on terms with the previous European champion.
2 bike lengths to Charlotte Kool. The showdown delivered. It's Wiebes who won. Around 4 bike lengths on that helicopter shot to the nearest challenger in third there. What a finish into Warrington. And you see from this front shot, this front camera shot here, Joe, how strung out the peloton is. And there really was ever only 3 riders at a maximum here at this point in the fight.
Yeah, really, you can see a lot of riders left well behind here, such as the speed and the power of Wiebes with that lead out. You know, Kopecky leading you out is always going to be super impressive. But yeah, it was Georgia Baker that I think got up there for the third. Good to see Flora Perkins getting herself up there, but never quite on terms with Lorena Wiebes.
A lot of confidence for Flora Perkins, the 20-year-old rider who, it's a big moment for her to pull on the Great Britain national team jersey. Barbieri, despite leading out Kool, hanging on for 4th place by the looks of things, and still riders coming in. 2 hours and 44 minutes of racing. Wow, what a stage that was. We had everything there with the breakaways, the animation. This looks like Joe Tindley who's coming in to the finish. Let's have a look through this final kilometre, because this was where Majeras was doing her final turn before she handed over to Barbara Grischi. Just talk me through here, Joe, how it all unfolded, because this left-hand turn was pivotal in how it all unfolded.
Yeah, it was, and you can see Christine Majeras, known for being super, super skillful, completely strings out the peloton on that turn, and you can see a few little gaps opened up there with the wheels behind. Barbara Grischi takes over here. It's Lotte Kopecky in the green jersey behind her, and you can see the road kicks up, and you can just see Ruby Rose Mangana moves out the way for the Liv Alula-Jayco train. Letizia Paternoster is clearly working for Georgia Baker here. She takes her right up alongside Lorena Wiebes, but Lotte Kopecky moves left. Wiebes goes to the right, and the road is clear for Lorena Wiebes. Absolutely no doubt in the end. You can see the top 2 riders in the world just moving clear of everybody else here.
Several bike lengths opened up, and it was daylight between Wiebes and Charlotte Kool. No photo finish needed there, neither. A great performance from Georgia Baker to take third, with Michele Barbieri taking 4th. Perkins looking to be in 6th. Got a look of Marjolein van Geloof as well, so if she was in the top 10 there, her road captaincy skills really came into their own in those final couple of kilometres, trying to guide her teammates to protect her and lead her out into this finish here.
Yeah, so that was the Hess cycling team in the sort of green and white kit, and we saw them a few times earlier on. You can just see her on the back there in the sort of green, white and black kit, just on the back of this train, trying to follow the wheel of Flora Perkins there in the Great Britain kit in the white. Clear win for Vibers at the front, but really interesting to see those riders battling it out for that sort of third and fourth place on the line there.
A split in the peloton, an excellent finish into Warrington. We've had one Tour of Britain stage finish here in the past. That was won by Ethan Hayter back in 2021 when he won ahead of Giacomo Nizzolo and Dan McClay took third that day. It was a complicated finish too, particularly with all of the road furniture that we saw into the final, having to navigate your way. Which way do you navigate? Because it's great, the roads were so wide. It's something that teams and riders relish, but particularly knowing which side of the road to be on, Joe, at that point is crucial.
Very much so. You can easily lose 2 or 3 bike lengths just from being on the wrong side of the road or going the wrong side of a piece of road furniture. And you can clearly see who had done their homework, who had checked it out before the start today. And SD Works Pro Time with Christine Majerus. She's known for being a super skillful rider, and she was, I think, really crucial to that SD Works victory there, taking that last roundabout, stringing out the entire peloton with gaps opening up to really launch Vibers into that final sprint.
Stage 3 got underway at 11 a.m. local time from Sankey Street in Warrington, where the riders departed after a 5-kilometre neutralised section. They went through kilometre 0, Joe, and at first it was all very calm. It was the leader in that Lloyds Bank green jersey who kept things well under control. This was the sad moment that we saw Alice McWilliam of Hess Cycling suffer that crash, and sadly the British rider had to abandon the stage. But this was the crucial moment of the race where Joe Tindley sensed that there was an opportunity on these narrow country roads to form a breakaway, and it was only Maddie Leach who responded, the rider in the lime green and purple jersey.
Yeah, Maddie Leach for Life Plasma, who was right in the right place at the right time at the front there, but it was Joe Tindley of Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Coffee Hargreaves Contracting who was the rider that initiated that. Clearly had a plan, clearly knew narrow roads, she's so skillful, she can get herself to the front of the bunch. She launched that attack, and that was the race deciding move for the most of the day.
Valerie Demey tried earlier on in the stage, and she tried again, and Hess Pro Cycling were trying to follow those moves, but in the end they were never able to try and bridge across to our leading duo as they got to our first Queen of the Mountain of the day. It was a category 3 climb offering 4, 3, 2 and 1 points towards that Queen of the Mountains competition. That was Peck's Hill, the 2-kilometre climb averaging 2.7%. Behind we had our chaser in Lucy Lee from Das Hutchinson Brother UK, the 26-year-old. And behind SD Works Pro Time in the peloton, well, they weren't too stressed about what was happening up ahead. They knew they could have the control, and coming to the top of Peck's Hill, it was Maddie Leach and Joe Tindley who would take the first 2 positions in the classification. Maddie Leach taking the 4 points. It's Joe Tindley who takes the 3 points, but nothing was going to challenge Lizzie Dignan in that classification.
Yeah, so she had more than 10, well, she had 10-point lead coming into today, and you can see here she's determined to keep that jersey now she's got it, so she just came out the peloton, sweeping up that one final point that was available. Nobody really challenging her there, but good work by the GB cycling team to get her there in the first place.
It puts her on an 11-point buffer going into the final stage tomorrow. She leaves stage 3 with 25 points. Emma-Kate Dimbleby with Anna Shackley in the team car was given an opportunity to try and break away and become a second chaser, but this was the heartbreaking moment that we saw Madeleine Leach suffer that front derailleur problem, because you can hear from the atmosphere sound, the problems, the mechanical, going into the second and final Queen of the Mountain of the day on Shrigley Road. It was going to be a tall ask.
It really was. So heartbreak there for Maddie Leach, struggling very much with the gears. Nice to see the support from Joe Tindley though, and the experience there from the older rider, just informing her what the problem is. But it was a long wait for a car to be able to come up to service her and change the bike. And you can see she is still powering on here, still doing her absolute best. Never quite in the right gear she wants to be in, but giving it a good go nonetheless.
But after a long day in a breakaway and you really start to feel the fatigue set into the legs, the last thing you want is to be stuck in your big ring on a Queen of the Mountain, particularly on these undulating roads. And this was where she was looking behind because she didn't have a team car behind her throughout the duration of the breakaway. She radioed through to the team car. The team car came up. She had a bike change. And then she was underway, but meanwhile, it was Jo Tindley who sadly had to say goodbye to her breakaway companion.
Yeah, tough moments there for Jo Tindley. Choosing to carry on, which I do think was the right decision. You know, she really couldn't have waited for her in that situation. She really had waited as much as she could. The problem was Maddie Leach there had, you know, on the descent trying to follow Jo Tindley was always going to be tough at the best of times, but without the gears it was going to be even tougher. But nice sort of second chance of Maddie Leach to be able to get onto this group of 2 chasers here that came across.
Lucy Lee and Emma Caitlin Dimbleby had caught Maddie Leach, and then they were caught by the peloton behind. It was SD Works Pro Time who'd made the junction, leaving only one rider remaining out front. That was Jo Tindley, the rider who initiated the very first successful breakaway of stage 3, and she was starting to feel the fatigue. She got to Mir, which was our one and only intermediate sprint of the day. She took the 3 bonus seconds, the 4 points in that red classification, that red jersey classification. And behind it was Letizia Paternoster, who took the 2 seconds ahead of Ruby Roseman Gannon, who took the 1 bonus second and the 1 point which remained. Valerie Drouet sensed she could try again. She tried earlier on in the stage, and the rider from Volker Wessel's Women's Pro Cycling, the 30-year-old Belgian rider, decided within 15 kilometers to go, she wanted to try and go for the stage victory into Warrington. She's never won a professional bike race in her career. She caught Jo Tindley, and she was looking like she was making some inroads to that finish line until that mechanical problem. It all came back together. She tried to go again with second wind, but in the end it all came back together as they headed towards the Manchester Ship Canal. They went through 5 kilometers to go, and it was all back together.
Yeah, it was. So always heartbreaking to see gear issues again for a rider, but at this point SD Works was still back in control. But a lot of teams, you know, not happy to let them take things completely. But inside this final K, Christine Majerus, really key rider here, knowing that they've got this roundabout coming up, launching into the finish.
Well, this was the moment that Barbara Garishi had handed over to Lotte Kopecky, and inside 200 meters to go, Lorena Wiebes launched a sprint. It was like a rocket was launched. Charlotte Cool was trying to challenge, but in the end it was daylight, and it was a stage victory for Lorena Wiebes. She makes it 3 in a row for SD Works Pro Time, her 12th victory of the season, her 83rd professional victory in her career. She's showing why she's the fastest sprinter, the best sprinter on 2 wheels currently, Jo.
Yeah, and again, really delivering when the pressure is on. Everyone was talking about her before today's stage. It was labelled as the sprint stage. She's known as the superstar sprinter of the women's peloton. And once again, delivering when it mattered, despite the fact there was a couple of sort of slightly messy moments in that run-in. There were a few technical sections with some road furniture, but her team navigated that brilliantly. We saw a few other teams really try and challenge SD Works. They were happy for SD Works to do all the work throughout the day, as they should have been. But once we got inside that final 5K, we saw the GB team up there. We saw Livalula Jaco trying to challenge. We saw, of course, Team DSM Firmenich Post NL getting right up there as well. So really good to see everybody giving it, you know, absolutely everything they've got in that finale. But when Wiebes went, just visually you could see she was just so much faster than everybody else, and Cool was able to sort of hold that wheel but never able to challenge.
Well, we have confirmation of our stage results of stage 3 into Warrington. Lorena Wiebes wins ahead of Charlotte Cool. Georgia Baker takes 3rd, with Raquel Barbieri taking 4th. Flora Perkins, the 20-year-old rider from the Great Britain national team, takes 5th, with Marjolein van Geloof taking 6th. Lotte Kopecky, after her lead out for Wiebes, taking 7th, with Paternoster in 8th. Roxanne Fournier taking 9th for Saint-Michel Mavic-Aubert, 93. And Alicia Gonzalez of Life Plus Wahoo rounding out the top 10 in the results. So a good day for Life Plus Wahoo, getting on the stage results in 10th, having a rider in the breakaway in Madeline Leach. Particularly as they're down to 4 riders remaining in the race with Leech, Gonzalez, Franz and Sodervisk.
Yeah, and especially after the bad luck earlier on as well. We've mentioned it a few times in the coverage, but if you hadn't seen it, unfortunately, bikes being stolen for one of our teams, and other teams helping out, very kindly providing spare bikes. So really good to see the women's peloton rallying together like that. But yeah, a top 10 for Life Plus Wahoo. Really good to see them up there.
A fantastic day, and it was a fantastic day for Joe Tindley out in the breakaway. I think we're going to get a word with the last survivor of that breakaway now.
Joe, what a day. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I think we sort of found out this might have been our sort of last opportunity to try and get up the road. Not so early as I was expecting, but I just saw an opportunity and just went. And luckily, Maddie came with me. And you just commit, see what happens. Unfortunately, Maddie had a mechanical, and I was absolutely gutted because you rely on that rest as she came through. So, yeah, it was longer than expected.
And can you tell us a bit about that moment when you kind of looked and realised that she was in a bit of difficulty? Were you trying to communicate at that point?
Yeah, so I heard something had gone wrong, and she was looking down trying to find out what it was, and I spotted what it was, and the only option she's got is to call the car forward. So she managed to keep riding, but she said to me, keep going. And at that point, you have to commit on your own. You have to pace yourself a little bit better. You can't be pushing the bigger watts. So I just had to sort of focus and settle in to what I was riding at.
Because I guess at that point, you have to make a quick decision because too much hesitation and then the move's gone.
Yeah, I think we had a 2 minutes or so at that point. So, and I knew I will be going slower up the climbs, and I knew there was a headwind on the way back. So it was a case of just sort of trying to you got to go. You can't hesitate, like you say. So yeah.
And of course, you've got combativity. You're rewarded with that. How proud are you of your ride today?
Yeah, so I got the information through on the radio before the bunch caught me. So for me, that's really emotional, and I think for the team as well. So yeah, it was really nice, and I know when Lucy won it on the first stage, we all cheered. So I know that they would have heard that back at the peloton as well. So that was a really nice moment. Yeah.
Joe, congratulations. You're just awesome.
Thank you. Cheers.
A proud moment for Joe Tindley. A great day for the team all round, because it really takes a team effort. What we see with Joe Tindley having that performance today, it really takes a team effort from the mechanics, the soigneurs, the sports directors, looking at the route today, Joe, and then knowing and bookmarking this as a stage where they can have some success.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear how she said this was their chance. They know tomorrow is very hilly day. Today was a chance to try and make that breakaway. And like you say, really credit to the team staff, a lot of whom are volunteers, a lot of whom are riders, partners or parents or anybody they can get that's been able to come out and help them at this race. They're a continental team that just formed 3 years ago with the aim of getting continental status and getting to be part of the Tour of Britain Women, and they've achieved that. So it's already a win being on the start line, but to come away with that prize is super special.
Incredibly special for the team of Pro Noctis, 200 Degrees Coffee, Hargreaves Contracting, and we're ready for our podium presentation here in Warrington. Lorena Wiebes, our stage winner into Warrington. She wins stage 3. It's the Dutch Rocket who wins the stage in the big meeting against her rival, Charlotte Cool. She wins, and she's presented by Councillor Mo Hussain, the Deputy Manager of Warrington. She's presented with the route of today's stage. Something that she'll never forget after her victory with the route there and her trip to Warrington, the flowers. And by the looks of things, she's been given a flag of the rugby team too. Warrington Wolves.
Yeah, a big day for the rugby team today. So big sporting day for Warrington as a city. And giving away the flowers again, we saw Lorena Wiebes do that yesterday as well. Another young fan benefiting.
It's lovely, isn't it? And that's also another one of those moments where you inspire the next generation. We saw that with Kopecky yesterday, and she really pinpointed one young girl that she wanted those flowers to go to. Lorena Weaver's doing quite the same there. A very nice moment. As we see our next prize to be presented. This will be the most combative rider of the stage.
20 kilometres, an incredible ride, and the deserving recipient for the team of Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Coffee, Hargreaves Contracting Limited. Your Combativity Award winner is Joe Tinley!
Hear the roar. Joe Tinley is voted by you, the fans, as the most combative rider of the day for Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Coffee, Hargreaves Contracting. An emotional day. A proud moment for the 37-year-old British rider. She'll always have Warrington etched in her memory. She'll now be a fan of Warrington Wolves, I'm sure. She's gained some fans today because hearing the cheers and screams in the background, she's got some new fans.
She certainly has. I think she's inspired a lot of people with that move today. Really inspiring to hear the story of her team and, you know, how it was such a win for them just to be here, but to have that long breakaway for Joe Tinley and to get that combativity prize. Very special way to end the day.
And to receive the red sprint leaders jersey.
The next prize to be awarded is the red sprinters jersey. Lotte Kopecky continues to lead the red sprinters jersey. She's led it since stage 1 into Llandudno. She's awarded with the Warrington Wolves flag and the flowers again. She won't have scored any points in that sprint finish. The points only for the top 5 riders on the stage. But she did come into today's stage with a good buffer to her closest challenger, which was Letizia Paternoster. Kopecky leads that competition, 9 points ahead of her teammate Lorena Wiebes. Paternoster in 3rd place ahead of Charlotte Kool in 4th.
For the Queen of the Mountains, it will be presented to the rider from the Great Britain Cycling
The big points in the Queen of the Mountains today along Pexhill and Shrigley Road were taken by the Breakaway. Both of those taken by Maddie Leach. But Lizzie Dignan, well, her lead wasn't challenged whatsoever. She picked up 1 point. She now has 25 points in that Queen of the Mountains competition and continues to lead the blue jersey into the final stage tomorrow as we head into Manchester. And it's someone's lucky day. They're able to catch the bouquet of Lizzie Dignan.
Northgate from Lloyds Bank for making that presentation. We move on now to the Best Young Rider Award.
What wasn't a big aim for the Great Britain national team, Joe and Lizzie Dignan, it's certainly become one, and one that they're focusing on now.
It certainly has. 2 first category climbs to come tomorrow with 10 points for the winner each time, though. So it's not a foregone conclusion, still some work to do, but a really good target for the team.
Cycling team, it's Eileen Janssen.
Having been in the breakaway on day 1, gaining good time, it's Eileen Janssen, the 22-year-old Dutch rider who continues to lead the Best Young Rider jersey. She'll wear the white jersey tomorrow on the final stage. Great job by her team, Volker Vessel's Women's Pro Cycling today, to keep her protected. She currently has 3 minutes and 57 seconds of an advantage over Flora Perkins, 3 minutes and 59 seconds over Abby Smith. Barring any problem tomorrow, knowing what a strong climber Eileen Janssen is, it's going to be tough for anybody to take that jersey off her shoulders.
It is, like you say, really decent lead there for her in that competition. It looks like it's pretty much sealed, but of course they very much need to stay vigilant tomorrow because, you know, one loss of wheels, one wrong side of the split, and things can very much change.
Rob Cook of Lloyds Bank comes to the stage to present our final presentation of the day here in Warrington.
Stage 3, her teammate took the sprint, but the race leader leader is still...
No bonus seconds for Lotte Kopecky today, but she came into the day with a good buffer over Anna Henderson, 17 seconds. Lotte Kopecky, the world champion, remains the leader of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. She still keeps that green Lloyds Bank jersey on her shoulders. Rob Cook of Lloyds Bank presenting her with the bouquet and the Warrington Wolves flag.
Can she make it number 4 tomorrow? You will find out. But for today, your race leader from the team of SD Works Pro Time.
It's been success for SD Works Pro Time. We perhaps expected nothing less, and Danish Stam came into the 4 days of racing outlining that he believes and he wanted the team to try and win all 4 stages. One more stage tomorrow. They've got 3 out of 3 so far.
Yeah, they're almost there, and you know, it's really sort of positive talk there from the Team DS, and it's, you know, brilliant that he's got such confidence in his riders. But I think anybody, you know, following women's cycling closely will have said, you know, they've got such a strong team. We are expecting them to get their really strong results here this week. 3 from 4 so far, 2 different riders. It'd be very interesting to see how tomorrow is raced, because, you know, last day of racing tomorrow, nothing to lose for anybody out there. Any of the other teams have got to try something if they want to try and challenge the dominance of SD Works.
Mo Hussein, the Deputy Mayor of Warrington, just taking his opportunity to have a photo with the world champion, offer his congratulations of how fantastic she's performed so far throughout these 3 stages. Of course, important for Mo Hussein as the Deputy Mayor of Warrington. Well, let's hear the thoughts of our stage winner into Warrington, Lorena Wiebes, the teammate of Lotte Kopecky, the leader.
Huge congratulations, firstly. That lead out, as ever, was rapid. Can you talk us through the sprint?
Yeah, the team did anyway a really good job all day with controlling the breakaway. And we kept actually Christine, Barbara, Lotte and me together for the final. And Christine delivered us really good through the corner as first. And it was a really fast finish. And then I saw like, oh, it's only 200 meters to go. So I started my sprint, and I was happy to deliver for the team.
And big time to celebrate.
Yeah, also, and it's always nice if the girls did so much work to finish it off.
And of course your teammate, you as a team, still holding the top of the general classification. A really solid week.
Yes, tomorrow 1 more day to go, so we go again full for it.
Thank you, good luck, congratulations.
Thank you.
Any teams listening to that post-race interview with Lorena Wiebes saying we go full for it, well, they'll be looking this evening, Joe, of how can they adapt their strategy to try and break the dominance of Team SD Works Pro Time.
Yeah, it's a question that a lot of people are asking, and I think if I had the answer to that, I'd be a very rich woman. But tough day tomorrow coming up. 2 first category climbs, but a lot of uncategorised climbing as well. So that could be the key opportunity to take the peloton by surprise, perhaps.
A short day, but an intense one with lots of climbing. Lotte Kopecky leads the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, 10 hours and 25 minutes, 49 seconds. 17 seconds ahead of Anna Henderson, 32 seconds ahead of Letizia Paternoster. 5 for Georgia at 38 seconds, with Aline Janssen, Lizzie Dignan, Christine Majeres and Victoire Gilman at 43 seconds. Ruby Roseman Gannon is at 3 minutes, with Lorena Wiebes leading a number of riders at 4 minutes and 19 seconds in that general classification. And of course, it's all to play for tomorrow across those hard North Manchester roads where it's constantly up and down, very, very little time for respite, and it's still so close between Kopecky, Henderson, Paternoster and Georgie, and of course Janssen, Dignan, Majeres and Gilman. Anything can change, anything can happen.
Yeah, especially that 3rd place on the podium. I think that's what I'm really looking at. I'm looking at 5 for Georgie, the British champion, who's currently just off the podium. It would be really, really good if Team DSM firm Nick Personnel could come away with a podium place at this year's race.
A terrific lead out from Lotte Kopecky for Lorena Wiebes. Here is the world champion.
It looks like a day that went exactly to plan. Again, you must be so happy individually and for the team.
Yeah, exactly. This finish was perfect for Lorena. And I think our team SD Works Pro Time controlled the whole day with Elena and Chantal. So was nice to have in the end 4 riders, 3 for the lead out. And yeah, I think they timed it perfectly.
You always do time it perfectly. What's the biggest priority going into the final stage tomorrow?
Sorry?
What's the biggest priority for the team coming into the final tomorrow?
Yeah, of course, defend the GC. We are 17 seconds ahead, so yeah, with Bonies, it's not possible to be beaten anymore. So yeah, we will need to be very attentive and see who can go out and who not.
Thank you. Congratulations again.
The teams that need to be attentive, but Lotte Kopecky stating there that SD Worx Pro Time also need to be attentive to other riders ahead of tomorrow's stage. Joe, your overall thoughts of stage 3 here?
Really brilliant race. Really good to see Jo Tindley and Maddie Leach in that breakaway for so long. Really good to see Jo Tindley continuing it solo despite the mechanical problems for Maddie Leach. So 2 British riders from continental teams really lighting up the race there. So that was brilliant to see. And the bunch sprint did not disappoint. You know, fantastic bunch sprint. The winner was the one that we expected, but still really good to see that unfold on the British roads.
Another terrific stage of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, finishing in Warrington with Lorena Wiebes taking her 12th victory of the season. Tomorrow we head back to the hills, we head to Manchester, getting underway from the National Cycling Centre, heading to Lee, a relatively short stage, 99 kilometres. But don't be deceived, because it's demanding plenty of climbing, plenty of elevation. And in the general classification, it's tight at the top of the standings, and particularly with those bonus seconds that are still available. 13 bonus seconds still remain out on the roads. You don't want to miss it. If you're nearby, make sure you get on roadside to come and watch the race and offer your support. Joe, it's been brilliant to have you alongside me today. Hannah Walker. For all of you who've joined from around the world to watch Stage 3, thanks for your company. We'll see you tomorrow for flag to line coverage all day. See you tomorrow.